This guy ran barefoot across sharp blades. He took off his shoes and kept running without stopping. Even when he completely lost feeling in his feet, they regenerated within seconds. That was because on his 18th birthday, Guang Yu discovered the truth. He was born with a dual bloodline, the legendary power of immortality, and the ability of a shapeshifter. One day after his birthday, when he woke up, his body was no longer the same. Muscles appeared and his strength skyrocketed. That was how his training began. To become an immortal weapon, falling from cliffs, running over blades, lifting iron in the gym, learning to use every type of weapon to the limit, all of it to master the power of a perfect hybrid. The world seemed like a completely normal place. Polite people were crossing at crosswalks until a mysterious energy started creeping towards someone's foot. Looking down, the guy was genuinely scared. His body was being sucked into a mysterious circle. That's when black holes started appearing. While that poor extra was being sucked in, the others decided to run for their lives. From that same spot, something very dark began emerging. Nefarious, dangerous creatures ready to end it all. Soon news choppers were hovering over the region, noting that the hole was growing larger. As time passed, the death toll rose. A little kid with a big head lay injured on the ground. Nearby stood someone who seemed to know what they were doing. This citizen looked at the creatures without fear. This is a story about an extraordinary world. In the air, the sea, and on the ground they were portals, bringing unseen creatures that began massacring humanity. That's when the supernatural appeared. They're simply people possessing those powers I mentioned earlier. Those who can lose body parts, regenerate, and keep living are called immortals. Others can transform into dangerous beasts. They are the Transformers. Mages obviously use magic. Nothing new in that definition. Thanks to these superpowered people, peace returned to the world. The year it all happened was named the Terrible Year. Once order was restored, the world focused on these supernatural people as they frightened conventional folks. Eventually, the government stepped in to manage and organize these distinct individuals. With the intervention of global conglomerates, organizations began to emerge, like the one for psychic users. Mages preferred to hide for protection. 20 years later, they still live among normal people. His dad says he has something to tell him, and that he shouldn't be too surprised. With zero build-up, the guy says his son is also an immortal. The boy was stunned, but the reality eventually sank in. Still grocery shopping. His old dad said the power must have been inherited. The boy wants to know why they're having such an important conversation. While shopping, the dad asked the boy for secrecy. Not even his mother should know about this. Immortals are known for youthful good looks. The dad said the son might not have inherited everything, but he is definitely an immortal. The powers will emerge on his 20th birthday, happening at 11 p.m. that night. Shocked by all this info, the boy is surprised by his father's calmness. Just then, the old man, who doesn't look old at all, remembered he needed to buy garlic. The boy recalled his mom asking for fresher garlic because it's easier to peel. Once again, the dad asked his son not to say anything to his mom. He doesn't know she married an immortal. This is serious enough that their marriage could end, since they were already at the checkout. The boy suggested they continue the conversation. Outside, as he carried the grocery bags, the boy was watched by the old man. It would make any father proud. He admired this youth's strength, able to carry all the bags in one trip. It's uncommon for immortals to be strong. Maybe it's because the boy likes to exercise. Our protagonist gave an awkward smile, knowing full well he's basically sedentary. His strength must come from other reasons. A second secret, something the boy has kept to himself. Finally, they arrived home and were welcomed by the woman inside. Our protagonist has known this second secret for a long time, way before knowing who was an immortal. The couple seems very much in love. The matriarch is thrilled. The garlic was bought correctly, just as she asked her husband. Witnessing all that excessive affection is embarrassing for our protagonist. It's bizarre because this couple is full of secrets, usually a recipe for failure. The matriarch is a transformer. All this happened 2 years ago, when she told our boy. He certainly must have inherited that characteristic. Two powers emerge at age 18, and were due to appear that very night. Sudden news for the protagonist. After revealing this, the matriarch emphatically asked him to keep it a secret and not tell his father. Back to the protagonist. They asked the boy what he wanted for his birthday. Being a very reasonable person, He said he was already grateful to have a cool family. His parents said he'd regret saying that. However, the matriarch liked that attitude. The boy is good with words. Just like her husband, meanwhile. The old man said, "Our boy inherited his mother's character. There's so much love between them. They don't seem like two big liars. But for the protagonist, it's fine. An immortal and a transformer. Really interesting. His birthday is happening traditionally, and our boy doesn't understand why his parents maintain the lies." Later, inside his own room, the boy tried to relax looking at the clock. He realized it would soon be 11 p.m. He remembered his conversation with the old man. Full of curiosity, the boy wanted to know if becoming an immortal hurt. The old man said his body burned a little when it happened. Then everything went very cold. That's when his senses sharpened. Even though it was weird, he didn't feel pain. This made the protagonist remember. When he became a transformer, he almost died, claiming his mother was just a normal human. Our boy asked if he would really inherit immortality. His dad guaranteed it, saying those genes are very dominant. Just as he was about to share something specific about himself, the old man changed his mind, thinking the boy wouldn't be affected by it anyway. This obviously left our protagonist very curious. Lying in bed, our boy wonders if he can inherit both characteristics. After all, he's already a shapeshifter, and he has no idea what to tell his dad if immortality doesn't show up in him too. Not wanting to dwell on it, the boy decided to just sleep. But that night was complicated. Our boy is in agony, remembering what someone said about the terrible year. Back when there were no black holes on Earth, nobody knew about immortals or shapeshifters. Life was very ordinary meanwhile. Our boy is having a near-death experience. The pain is intense. Then his eyes began to shine in a very abnormal way. Now we're taking 2 years into the past, when our boy turned 18. Looking in the mirror, he realized his body had become visibly stronger. All that muscle mass just from becoming a shapeshifter. He was surprised by his mother, who already knew this would happen. The matriarch asked if he was enjoying the sensation. Our boy obviously was embarrassed, but she just came to check if everything was okay. The protagonist said he's feeling a lot of power and his senses are sharper. He just doesn't understand why. The matriarch hadn't told him anything. When the transformation happened, it felt like his hair was being ripped out. He had also vomited a lot of blood and felt like every single one of his muscles was tearing into thousands of pieces. The matriarch said that telling him wouldn't have changed anything. He would have felt the pain anyway. Very worried, our boy wanted to know if this awakening would happen again, but she guaranteed everything would return to normal. This left our protagonist very relieved, as he never wants to go through that again. Back in the present moment, the poor guy is having to fight for his own life. If there's one thing he isn't feeling right now, it's comfortable the next day. The boy pulled at the skin on his face a little. Even though he turned into an immortal, he still feels pain. His appearance hadn't changed either. The only noticeable change is in his eyes. He sees a little better in the dark now. His senses are even sharper too, especially his hearing. Noises can make him very sensitive now. He's struggling to control all that input, trying to isolate himself from the excess noise. To find a little peace finally, everything returned to normal. Sighing in relief, our protagonist realized that he really had transformed into an immortal. But what really worries him is thinking about whether he can keep these abilities hidden. Outside, they're calling for Gwangik to come eat breakfast. God, what a horrible name. When he came out of the bathroom, our boy was genuinely impressed. That breakfast looks like a 5-star hotel lunch. It must be his lucky day. Things are already starting off wonderfully. Only then did he notice that everyone in that house eats a lot. Our boy heard that shapeshifters need many calories, but his father, who is an immortal, also eats a ton. Maybe all supernatural need a lot of food. Actually, the old man noticed there's less food than usual. The matriarch said she's still making rice, but it will be ready soon. Our boy thinks it's absurd that these two never suspected each other. Just then, the old man remembered he had something to tell his son. He needs to prepare for the civil service exam. This seems to be sudden information. The old man said a great opportunity just popped up, but the matriarch didn't like it. The boy is 20, he should go to college. Going to college is important, but it's better to be a functional member of society. The matriarch agrees with that, but she doesn't want to see her son studying all day for this test. The old man believes our protagonist is very intelligent and won't even need to study much. This is the first time the boy has seen the two argue so much. Most immortals work for the government. Maybe that's why his father wants something like this. The problem is that the matriarch must have other plans. Once again, we go to the past. Our protagonist managed to do 15 pull-ups, which is impressive. He could barely do 2 before awakening. The matriarch said that shapeshifters are 3 times stronger than a normal human being. Now the protagonist understands why his own mother is so strong. Not to mention, she never stopped training all these years. There's another thing they stand out in too. Shapeshifters possess excellent instincts, and soon the boy will feel guided by them as well. This is very confusing information. Our protagonist hasn't felt anything yet, and the patriarch said instincts can be a little problematic inside society, so he must train to control them. That's why she wishes for him to go to college and find a traditional job. The boy's grandfather possesses good connections with companies that hire shapeshifters. That's why he needs to do well in college. In that job, he will be taught like a shapeshifter. Since his parents want to decide what the boy will do, they realized it's up to their son to decide his own future. This ended up leaving our poor protagonist at a deadly crossroads. The truth is, he possesses a third choice, but he never shared it with his parents. He said he would like to join the Navy and become a Marine. The boy's parents fell into complete silence. The matriarch got furious because she knows her son is a shapeshifter, and she didn't want to see him as a rank-and-file soldier. She said, the boy still hasn't thought about this the right way. The protagonist replied that he's already 20 and knows very well how to make his own decisions. But nothing he says seems to change that woman's mood. She's getting even more furious. However, the old man liked the idea. Joining the Navy doesn't seem so bad. Certainly the protagonist doesn't want to do this just because of a uniform. It is natural that young people want to protect their own country, especially in this bizarre world. For the old man, it could be interesting. The boy won't be sent to the first armed conflict. That happens, he will receive basic training and be sent to some random base. Our protagonist realized he is almost getting what he wants, but his mother said that won't happen now until the old man remembered the civil service exam. Again, the condition is that he takes this test, then joins the army actually. This could help the boy's military career. Our protagonist is thinking about the possibilities, deciding he would take the test. The old man said he needs to study to do very well, since he is very interested in this. He already thought of a private tutor for the boy. The subject seems to have been resolved, but the protagonist noticed. The patriarch didn't like it. That same day, our boy needed to take a small trip to get ready for this test. This private tutor is a farmer who likes living in isolation. The protagonist never imagined he would study for this test one day because his goal is to be a Marine. While on the bus, he decided to distract himself with his phone. The news about the world isn't very interesting. Conflicts are becoming increasingly common. This ended up discouraging our boy. Maybe becoming military isn't so cool. All this is due to the appearance of white holes, which showed up right after the black holes. While things come out of black holes, white holes are entry doors, giving access to the invader's dimension, filled with various new minerals, plants, and animals' resources that can be exploited. Humanity is still in search of new resources. Shapeshifters are the tip of the spear in this battle, due to their physical strength. That's why the matriarch wouldn't like her son to become military. The truth is, the protagonist doesn't want to be just military. He would like to be part of something even bigger. The mysterious farmer received a call from the old man, informing him that the young man will arrive soon to prepare for the exam. The farmer guaranteed he won't go easy, just because he's teaching his friend's son. He promised to put him in shape. That is practically a certainty. Poor protagonist, he doesn't even know what awaits him, are now looking at each other intently. Full of doubts, the farmer asked who the boy is. Our protagonist said he is the old man's son, but that's not what the farmer is asking about. That young man doesn't even look like an immortal, because he has a visibly strong body. Our protagonist said he is a hybrid, but the farmer thought that was strange. Immortals are very genetically dominant, and he knows exactly who the boy's father is. It doesn't make sense that human genes made so many changes. The protagonist said his mother's blood is very strong. Too, the whole story was considered weird by the farmer. Even so, he asked to tag along. After all, this is private mentorship, and the protagonist remembered why he was in this region. Obeying the old man, he went to that inhospitable place to prepare for the exams, and that farmer in the hat, looking like a Bear Grylls cosplayer, is our boy's teacher. Surely he must be an immortal too. A bit curious, the protagonist asked the farmer if there was a temple in the area. The farmer thought that was a very weird question. But what worries the protagonist is that they are heading deeper and deeper into the mountains until finally they arrived at their destination. And our protagonist didn't like what he found one bit. It's a very simple place. Just a fire pit and a small shack. Our protagonist wants to know what the hell he's going to learn in a place like that. He thought he came here to study. The farmer asked if the boy had truly awakened and if he tested his abilities yet. The protagonist said he tried cutting himself, and sure enough, the wound healed quickly. Seeing the boy had done the basics, the farmer asked if he knew how immortals heal their own wounds. The truth is, not even the farmer has the answer to that, because he doesn't need to know the basics of healing. The fundamental thing is resilience. The greater an immortal's resistance, the better their healing powers. The second part is the nerves. The keener their senses, the more pain they'll feel. If he can control that, he can better identify his own wounds. The purpose of that training is to improve the boy's resistance and the control he has over his own senses. After explaining that, the farmer asked if the boy still had questions. The protagonist said there was something he didn't understand. He wants to know if he really needs to walk on that path full of knives. The farmer said the protagonist needs to learn to control his own body. But to our boy, that makes zero sense, seeing that he talks too much. The farmer asked why the boy is even taking the exam, since this training is part of the test too. Only then did the farmer ask if the boy isn't going to be part of the immortal task force. But our protagonist seems completely oblivious to this information. Apparently, the old man didn't reveal everything he knows. Farmer said it's like the military. If the boy doesn't want to be part of it, he doesn't need to do that training, but to do what he really wants. Our protagonist realized he needs to conquer this training, since he might ruin his clothes. The farmer handed him some hideous shorts. Now our protagonist is barefoot, realizing this exam is going to be a little different from what he expected. The farmer told the boy to start running. He doesn't have all the time in the world. The protagonist sighed deeply, filling himself with determination. He started walking down that path. His feet started getting pierced by the knives. While our boy is screaming, the farmer told him not to stop running. If he were being chased by enemies, things would be much worse. The knives began to cut down to our protagonist's very bones. At the end of that day, his legs were incredibly tired. The training was intense. The farmer noticed the boy managed to dodge some knives, a sign he has very good reflexes. But there was something even more impressive. The boy's healing ability is really very good for it. To be perfected, it's necessary for him to get hurt a little more. So he shouldn't dodge the knives. He was instructed to step with enough force to break his own legs now. The boy needs to stop complaining and go back to running immediately. While our boy suffers, the farmer realizes there is something different. After finishing that route, the farmer said an immortal won't die so easily. It's time for the boy to start running again. Our protagonist wants to know when it's going to end. The farmer said they need to do this a little longer. He needs to overcome the initial shock and increase his pain tolerance. Those knives serve to prepare him for moments of panic, and the farmer wants to know why. The boy hasn't gone into shock yet, but only the protagonist knows. He is also a shifter. He would never go into shock from getting hurt like that. That's why our protagonist asked if there is another way. The farmer wants to know how fast he can run. 50 meters. The protagonist said he does it in 6 seconds. That's basically the length of that knife track. If the boy completes the route in that time, they finish that stage. That seems to have motivated our protagonist. He's now determined to do it in the shortest time possible. He also lied about the 6 seconds. That's his time when he's taking it easy. It's definitely going to hurt a lot. But our boy is going to control his own senses. Doing that route in 6 seconds will be easier than it looks. The protagonist advanced toward the knives without any fear, leaving the poor farmer quite surprised. Our boy keeps running flawlessly until finally he reached the other side in just 6 seconds. Although it was fast, he's panting heavily, and the farmer still doesn't understand it. Recognizing the protagonist is really a very different kind of guy, so he asked him to do it one more time, to try and repeat the same time, to force the boy to do it again. The farmer said he forgot to time it, but eventually they ended up moving on to the next training, and a very weird necklace was handed to our boy. It looks much more like a dog collar. The farmer said it's necessary for the next exercise, telling the protagonist to put it around his own neck. In this next training, our protagonist will have to learn to control his own breath. Only then did he understand why there were so many metal weights on that collar. When the farmer presses a button, that necklace, which is actually a collar, will tighten around the boy's neck. He also told our protagonist not to take it off. He just ran through a knife track. He can't give up now, our boy then, guys. His name is horrible from now on. He's Gustavo, and Gustavo asked if they couldn't just dive into water. But the farmer said that's not enough. That collar also mimics strangulation. It's very complete training. Losing your senses is worrying. The war against the supernatural taught humans how to fight them. In the farmer's day, they were hung from trees to train this stage. The rookies suffer much less now, which to Gustavo is absurd. This training is pure suffering. But since he's not going to give up, he asked what he needs to do to pass. The farmer said, the boy's going to end up losing consciousness, so he needs to force himself to stay awake for at least 5 minutes. Also, the farmer told the protagonist not to try and remove the device or try to take the controller from his hand. He might get his chest pierced, and that's going to hurt a lot. Finally, our boy is ready. The farmer is ready to hit the button. Time to increase the suffering. The protagonist's hands immediately started scratching the ground. The strangulation device began to press on his neck. Very firmly, Gustavo can no longer stand up. Completely in agony, he tries to remove the device. But the farmer won't let that happen and push the boy's hand away from the suffering collar. Seeing that Gustavo can still move around quite a bit, the farmer thought he was going too easy on him. If the suffering is too great, the boy might just give in and faint. But Gustavo wants to know when this is going to end. He's sure it's been more than 5 minutes. His vision finally started to get blurry, as if his internal breaker were about to trip at any moment, or like his eyes were going to explode. Right out of his face, finally, our boy threw in the towel. The device automatically turned off. Protagonist's eyes started to shine. His strength is returning little by little. The one confused by this was the farmer. He believes the device just failed because he hadn't turned anything off. Maybe the battery died right at that instant. Even so, the collar stopped working and fell from the protagonist's neck. Our warrior said he almost died in that experience, contradicting his words. The farmer said that wouldn't happen so easily, since he hadn't fainted. Gustavo hopes he doesn't have to go through that again, because he's sure he passed the 5-minute mark. In fact, the farmer did time it this time. Our boy managed to resist that suffering for almost 13 whole minutes, which is really impressive. The record up until now is 8 minutes. Farmer's look now is one of great joy and interest, like a child who just got the coolest toy. Since the day was coming to an end, the farmer suggested they rest. Gustavo didn't expect to be fed in that place. The farmer said they need to increase the boy's resistance, so food is fundamental heading into the kitchen. Gustavo asked if he could help with anything, but the farmer just told the kid to have a seat and wait. Honestly, Gustavo doesn't even know how to cook. He only offered out of sheer politeness. A few minutes later, some disgusting goop was served to him. It looked absolutely distressing. Gustavo stared at it with real dread in his heart. He actually asked what ingredients the farmer had used. The man said it would be better for the kid not to know what was inside. Outside, our boy is now drying some clothes. While showering, he realized he'd better start making his own meals. It's time to learn how to cook. But what he really needs right now is more information from the old man. It would be great to call his dad immediately. He's feeling incredibly tired, so Gustavo also desperately wants a good night's sleep. But when he got back to that little house, he was disappointed. After slapping a mosquito dead with his hands, he said he had a question for the farmer. He wanted to know if there was any electricity in this place. The farmer just said that lighting attracts too many bugs. Ignoring the kid, the farmer was already sleeping peacefully on the floor. Gustavo realized there wasn't much else to do, so he lay down too, but just before drifting off, he heard the farmer speak. He said this was to help him with his senses. Since it was his first night, he might not even be able to sleep. Before he could even finish those words, the farmer was impressed. Gustavo was already snoring right next to him. This is getting more and more impressive. The next day, breakfast was put in front of our boy. As expected, it didn't look appetizing at all. Even so, Gustavo thanked him for the food. The farmer said that the metabolism of immortals is very fast, so they need to eat a lot. While staring at that gastronomic atrocity, Gustavo asked what they would be training that day. The farmer replied that they were going to learn cliff diving. It's so the boy can learn breath control in free fall. and refine his senses, Gustavo realized. It's crucial for an immortal to learn not to lose consciousness, whether from impact or asphyxiation. The farmer said he was right, but there's something else he needs to watch out for. He can't lose his legs and sacrifice mobility. Arms, however, can be used as shields. Losing an arm to protect the head is actually very useful. It works to protect the legs. Two knives can be very dangerous for them, just like powerful explosives. But the farmer quickly told the kid to eat up. They needed to train hard that day. As expected, our boy was tossed off a massive canyon, Lion King style, after completing that training. The boy was sent home. The first thing he did on the bus was grab his phone to make a call. While talking to his dad, Gustavo asked if he had really been sent to the right place. This confused the old man. Gustavo started narrating that absurd training regiment. The old man just said it was fine because his son is an immortal. He wouldn't die that easily. It's crucial for the boy to learn his body's limits. The most interesting part was that Gustavo discovered he is actually very strong. Now the kid wants to know when the exam will happen. But the old man had to hang up because his wife started asking for help with chores. The truth is, knowing how the exam will go won't change Gustavo's life much, so he just needs to rest arriving home. Our boy took a very relaxing shower. Hot water truly is a gift. He played some games too. The kid is only 20. After all, at this phase, games are more interesting than women for some guys. Right after that, he had a meal with actual food. He slept in a very comfortable soft bed, unlike the experience of sleeping out in the woods. The next day, Gustavo woke up completely renewed, believing the day would be perfect. Then the matriarch said she needed the boy's company that day. Atrocious news for the poor guy, who just wanted to laze around all day. The matriarch said the kid needs to study for college, and she already packed his bags. She found a private tutor near that neighborhood who can help him with entrance exams. Our boy will stay with this teacher for the next 2 days, but judging by the poor guy's look, he already knows it won't be easy. A dark feeling began to fill his heart. It's going to be 2 days of suffering. Dropping the boy off at the correct address, the matriarch said she'd be back to pick him up soon. The kid asked if he wouldn't be introduced to his new tutor, but his mother said goodbye with some somber advice. He needs to be smart, especially when he has such a weak body. Now our protagonist is feeling completely abandoned, realizing the next 2 days will be intense. Unfortunately, his family is really complicated. The elevator keeps going down until the door is finally open for the protagonist. He observes the area, still very suspicious. He sees that on this floor, there's several treadmills and various weights. It's practically a gym. It's the type of facility Gustavo wasn't expecting to find until finally someone approached him there. Our protagonist was very impressed, and that woman in gym clothes, looking like a cheap version of Wolverine's uniform, knows he is the matriarch's son. The protagonist's mother's name is in Korean. A hideous name, by the way, so I'll call her Selma. The boy confirmed his identity, also revealing he doesn't know what he's doing there. The trainer knew the kid had been studying the past few days. That's a waste of the physical talent he has. Poor guy can't tell the truth yet. The matriarch has a simple way of teaching her children. They have to be responsible for what they do. Her charming smile hides an extremely severe woman. If he didn't take that boxing class with Selma, poor wretch would get beaten up too much. Maybe this training is a reflection of that. The trainer handed Gustavo a watch. Since our boy is traumatized by weird devices, he asked what it was. The trainer said, "It's a gadget to measure things." Gustavo immediately thought he would be trained, and for that he needs to be tested by the trainer. She pointed in the direction of the first machine. It's time to make the kid run. Our boy started taking his first steps on the treadmill, all while being constantly monitored. Trainer knew the kid had never trained in his life, and it's noticeable he's actually quite pathetic. His heart rate is normal, but his running pace is abysmal. Poor guy, besides being harshly criticized, he just wanted to play video games all day. The trainer said newbies are very lazy these days. To our protagonist, this trainer doesn't even seem old enough to talk like that. Only then did he remember that Supernatural's age. Very slowly bored, he asked how long he would have to run. The trainer told him to shut up and keep running. It's time to improve that weak body of his. She claimed Gustavo is going to become a new man, a statement that left our protagonist a little scared. He said he doesn't want a second mother, which made the trainer smile. The day is already ending. and the protagonist keeps running non-stop. The trainer can't believe he's getting tired already. If he stops now, it would be an insult to all his ancestors. Quite out of breath, the boy asked how long he had been there. He discovered he hadn't stopped running for 14 hours, which is truly incredible. The poor guy didn't think he'd be running all night, at least in the immortal training. He got to sleep a little. The trainer said that without training, Gustavo is just an amateur. But to help the boy out, she decided to turn on a television in front of him. It showed stretching exercises that he needs to do right after this. So he must memorize everything. You need a flexible body, because being too rigid is a disadvantage. Gustavo would like to ask more questions, but he's too tired to talk. Not to mention, he's the one who needs to track the time. My bad, guys. I was wrong earlier. He needs to pay attention to the time, because the trainer asks frequently, and the poor guy still has to learn those weird stretches while paying attention to everything the trainer says. True cruelty, but hey, when it rains it pours, right? Gustavo has already come too far. He started remembering the days back at the cliff. The farmer had said, the boy can already control his senses very well, but it's still not enough. He needs more control. It's not necessary to focus on the sense. You want a block to sharpen the others. What he needs is to coordinate all of them simultaneously, and that's exactly what the boy is doing now. He pays attention to the watch, memorizes the stretches, and listens to the trainer's orders. All this while running nonstop. The seconds are ticking by like an eternity, until Gustavo finally completes 24 hours of nonstop running. He can finally get off the treadmill. The trainer confirmed the time on her phone. It's a relief for her to notice. The kid is still thinking clearly. It's time to move on to stretching. She gives a quick demonstration, so the boy learns the proper technique. The trainer started bending her body in a pretty exotic way, leaving Gustavo very impressed. That woman is way too flexible for someone with so much muscle. It was the boy's turn to try. He immediately tried to throw his back backward, but his body is very resistant, and he barely managed the full range of motion. The trainer said flexibility comes slowly. You need to repeat the exercises, stretching the muscles gradually. But our boy is also an immortal. He knows his body regenerates easily, so he forced the position immediately, making some very weird noises and scaring his trainer. Visibly worried, she went to help the poor guy. That sound shouldn't have happened. She told him not to push too hard on this part, but Gustavo claimed he was fine, wiggling his fingers a bit. Gustavo showed he had managed to master that position. That's when the trainer realized, this kid is seriously weird. In fact, the poor guy couldn't even get back to normal, and needed help doing it since he had trained enough. It was time for mealtime. A beautiful piece of meat. It's practically a whole pig. Gustavo asked if they were going to eat that alone, and the trainer said that meat is all for the boy. She's going to eat a whole pig too, which is really surprising. That's part of the discipline as well. They need to learn to store energy, which is crucial for continuing to fight. The two of them start eating like enraged animals. The trainer told the boy to throw the bones on the floor. Someone will come clean it up later. At least the taste is delicious. The trainer said he needs to eat everything. Waste is unacceptable. Our boy said that would never happen anyway. After finishing eating, the trainer said she was leaving and told our boy to sleep after the meal. Now the boy is alone in his room, which is way better than sleeping out in the woods, accompanied by mosquitoes the size of dinosaurs. There he can also use his own phone, so he decided to call his mom. Contacting her, he realized the matriarch is worried. In fact, Selma had asked the trainer to go hard on him, but that made her worried, and the boy realized his suffering was increased because of it. But the matriarch is so concerned. She told the boy she could ask the trainer to go even harder if she was going too easy, since his father just arrived. She has to hang up. That brief conversation messed with our poor guy's head. On the second day, he realized something about the Transformer training. It's about doing stupid things repeatedly and overcoming your limits. There's more science to this training. They use various electronic equipment. The trainer's conclusion, after everything, is that our protagonist has very bad reflexes. So she asked him to lift that barbell. Looking at the weights, the boy believes it must weigh about 45 kilos. Lifting that won't be a problem, because Transformers are very strong. The trainer asked him to follow her a bit. She told the boy to run while holding that weight, and as the saying goes when it rains, shit pours. The poor guy is going to have to run across a narrow path, practically a tightrope. The trainer said the boy needs to focus on balance, but he doesn't even know if that's possible. This wooden plank is too narrow. Our boy doesn't know if he can do this and believes a fall could be dangerous. Trainer knows it's only 3 meters high. A fall like that wouldn't be fatal for the boy, but she strongly recommends he avoid falling. The main rule for Transformers is to avoid getting hurt, because they aren't immortals, who regenerate automatically. Since our boy knows about his particular biology, he decided to run at full speed. Getting hurt isn't a risk for him. Seeing the poor guy's recklessness, the trainer started getting very worried. But our protagonist had refined his own senses. His balance is perfect since he's also an immortal. Senses are even more refined. That turned out to be too easy for him. Almost fun. Not having to walk on knives is a real relief. Arriving on the other side, the boy believed he was done, but the trainer asked him to do it 4 more times. Gustavo keeps doing it at the same speed. The trainer is getting more and more intrigued. The boy did it perfectly without losing his balance, increasing the difficulty level. This time he's going to have to walk on a steel cable. Gustavo realized this is actually going to be difficult, questioning if he really needs to do this. The trainer said, yes, what he did on the wooden plank. Even children do. She wasn't expecting much from the protagonist, but realized she ended up underestimating the boy. He possesses great senses. She even placed some mattresses to cushion the fall, knowing this won't be easy. In case he fell, the trainer recommended he try to grab onto the cable. At least he doesn't need to carry weight this time. Even so, still feeling challenged. That is less worse than the Immortals training. But walking on a steel cable is never an easy task. Upon taking the first steps, the boy realized the structure is very resistant and deforms very little. There's no wind to sway him. And if he falls to the ground, it will be onto the mattresses. There is nothing to fear in that situation. Full of courage, Gustavo opted for the easiest solution, running across the steel cable. He almost lost his balance halfway, deciding to go back to walking with a little more control. Every step must be very well thought out. Maintaining coordination, our boy keeps advancing. This ended up leaving the trainer increasingly fascinated. Finally, the training was over, and the trainer said they would see each other again. Next weekend, Gustavo is now in his mother's car. Imagining the boy is curious. She brought some answers for him. For her, it would be hard to imagine her son screwing up in any aspect of life. It's time for him to learn to use the body he has. He can't be weak forever. This leaves our boy scared, because he is already extremely strong. But since Gustavo's goal is to join the Marines, a little physical training isn't negative, and he hopes he can join them one day. Dinner that day was quite abundant. The matriarch was impressed by the boy's hunger. He ate like an animal. Our boy said he learned to value the food she makes. Over the last few days, he shared with her that he also wants to learn to cook, saying that muscular men who cook are successful with women. The matriarch agrees with that with the cooking part, but makes it clear that her son needs to get muscular first. The way he is now, he looks like a bohemian, the kind who sits in the square playing dominoes. Even so, our boy wants to learn to cook, since the Immortals don't seem to care about that. While relaxing, Gustavo started thinking about what the next training will be like, hoping something new has been prepared and less painful. Of one thing, he is sure no matter what they do, Gustavo is certain it can't get worse. This protagonist is really very naive. The shock of his body hitting the ground scared even the birds. Farmer said they managed to overcome the basic part, and it has nothing to do with passing the exam. Everything he has done so far is basically the essential to get to the next phase. After having thrown himself off that cliff, the boy had finished his warm-up. Unlike the Transformer training, at least that suffering ends quickly, and our boy soon stops feeling pain. But the farmer is a very demanding trainer. Bullets go through the body. They can deal with that well. But losing pieces to a blade is another story. Very complicated if the damage isn't too severe. It's better to let yourself get cut. More dangerous movements must be avoided at all costs. The farmer's expression is terrifying, almost like he enjoys what he does. Gustavo asked why he has that sword in his hand. The farmer questioned the boy, since he thought he was a smart guy. It's time for the boy to learn to dodge swords, or get hit with the least possible damage. The poor guy is now fighting to survive, avoiding getting hit in the head, all while the farmer dedicates himself thoroughly. Even so, he realized the boy had become stronger. He needs to learn to avoid severe injuries. Smaller ones are going to happen anyway. The first strike with the sword found our boy. It was a painful cut. The farmer advised him to block thigh attacks with his shins, or shift his body so the blade wouldn't strike deep. Basically, Gustavo is learning the right way to get cut. His regeneration capabilities are seriously impressive. That just motivates the trainer even more. Now, he can really take the gloves off. Gustavo realized his days here wouldn't be easy. The poor kid's blood is practically turning into fertilizer for the plants weakened. He listened as the farmer explained that blood loss is a major weakness for immortals. Stopping the bleeding is crucial. Gustavo was exhausted, so they broke for food. He volunteered to cook that day. Back at the shack, our boy set up his little camping stove. He whipped up a beautiful pasta recipe he learned from his mother. The farmer had some as well. He even admitted the kid had talent. Gustavo was relieved. The farmer could actually tell good food from bad. But then the farmer clarified his point. Cooking is also a form of discipline. Learning to ignore repulsive flavors is part of the training too. Back outside, they returned to physical training. The farmer moved instantly, striking Gustavo in the gut. The force of the blow dropped the poor guy's blood pressure. Immediately, it was time to learn how to regenerate internal organs. Step 1. Apply pressure to staunch the bleeding. Internal damage takes a bit longer to heal. What really confused Gustavo was the speed. He never even saw it coming. The farmer explained he had masked his energy, rendering Gustavo's senses useless. Our boy immediately wanted to learn that technique. Meanwhile, his wound had finished regenerating. Seeing his interest, the farmer asked if he wanted to learn how to do it. Gustavo didn't hesitate to say yes. 2 long days later, our boy was back in that elevator. He was ready to learn more from his muscular female trainer. A dark sensation overtook him as someone pointed a gun his way. He asked if they were using rubber bullets. The trainer said maybe, then fired a shot right past his head. It was a gas pistol fitted with special rounds. Gustavo's first lesson of the day, learning to dodge bullets. But the poor guy was motivated. As the shots rang out, he ran around the area. The trainer stated that bullets are very dangerous. Captain Obvious strikes again. He needed to find cover or move fast and unpredictably to avoid being an easy target. One of the rounds grazed his arm. The trainer warned him not to get hit. It would take him out of the fight if he had to take a hit needed to minimize the damage. This level of suffering felt just like the Immortals training. Reflecting on both regiments, Gustavo realized something interesting. Their tactics were highly specific, tailored to their respective biologies. Neither trainer was teaching him how to fight. The primary objective was survival, refining his body further and further. Immortals needed to avoid blades, which are complicated or high-caliber weapons. Transformers, on the other hand, didn't fear bladed weapons. Their bodies were strong enough to handle them. Shotguns weren't that dangerous either, given their poor long-range precision and the Transformers' speed. After a while, bullets littered the floor. It was time for a short break. The trainer told our boy to start running while carrying weights. It was definitely better than getting stabbed. Then it was time for him to cross the steel. High wire again, but halfway across. He felt an incredibly menacing presence. The fear was so intense that he lost his balance. He tried to flee, but ended up falling to the ground below. Completely terrified, Gustavo frantically looked around for the cause of that sensation. The trainer, however, remained perfectly motionless. She then asked if he had really been able to feel that. Our protagonist was even more confused. The trainer explained it was wild energy, and she was surprised a newbie could detect it. Gustavo begged her not to do it again. He felt like his heart was going to explode. Using the energy again, she said he could get used to it once he possessed that energy himself. Now he had to get back to his exercises. 2 days later, he stopped falling off the high wire and began reacting better to the energy pressure. Having the senses of an immortal helped significantly. That's how he managed to resist the pressure, by controlling his core muscles. Walking the steel wire became easier. The trainer watched all of this, impressed by the boy's capacity. Gustavo kept training hard. The immortal regimen felt like a stroll through hell. The farmer was already varying the weapons to help the boy learn to regenerate his own organs. He was also using traps to capture him, which were extremely dangerous. Prolonged pain could interfere with cognition, so the boy had to avoid it at all costs. Immortals use their bodies to fight, almost treating them as disposable. That's why he needed to learn pain control. Too much pain altered one's thoughts. Across town, the Transformer training also continued. Our boy was now moving around wearing body weights, all while continuing his lifting regimen. Things were getting increasingly intense, with some minor changes. His father had to travel for work for 10 days. When he returned home, he was warmly welcomed by his wife. They were definitely a couple deeply in love. Meanwhile, the farmer stopped stabbing our boy and started teaching Gustavo how to use bladed weapons. Firearms were two easy martial arts, however, seemed intuitive for Gustavo. The Transformer training might have helped with that. Conversely, the muscular trainer taught our boy how to use firearms. She felt martial arts could be useful, but he only needed the basics. His physical strength would handle the rest, since our boy is a hybrid, receiving two types of training. Everything happened quite naturally. 2 months had already passed. Gustavo was enjoying the rhythm, and the old man noticed. The boy went to the gym frequently. He commented that the lad was really very strong, which the matriarch took as a positive sign. Any compliment in that house was an excuse for the couple to start flirting. It made Gustavo wonder why he was an only child, because his parents certainly put a lot of effort into that particular game. Inside the bathroom, Gustavo began observing his own reflection. He didn't know why he didn't have a girlfriend yet. He was young, handsome, and healthy. It was time for something to happen. The matriarch's cell phone started ringing. She was going to meet a young woman's mother. The daughter was in her final year of school, and her mother was worried. The father was left alone in the living room. He noticed a cell phone sitting there. Our boy was looking for the hairdryer, but when he entered the room, he realized no one was around. He sat down to grab his own phone. There was a test the next day, and our boy needed to take it. His classmates thought it was weird. He wasn't headed to college, but that had never been Gustavo's goal. His future was determined 9 years ago, when a massive black hole appeared on Earth. The poor kid had been buried under tons of rubble. He saw someone running toward the invaders. That was the moment the boy decided that when he grew up, he wanted to be just like that person. This would be grievous for his mother. She wished for her son to have a normal life. Outside, the matriarch went to meet someone. That person was our protagonist trainer, who asked what excuse had been given this time. Selma replied that she had gone to meet a neighbor. Now that the two were sitting and having a drink, the trainer asked if Selma wasn't curious to know more about Gustavo's training, showing a hint of sadness. Selma said she didn't have high expectations. The child of a normal human and a transformer usually didn't turn out that powerful. She hadn't asked any questions so far because she assumed the boy was doing poorly. Meanwhile, the protagonist's father was also on a very important call. On the other end of the line was the farmer, who had crucial information to convey. He stated that the protagonist was an irregular, back with the matriarch. She just hoped her son could take care of himself, so he wouldn't be kidnapped and turned into a laboratory guinea pig. The trainer knew these things happened. They wanted to produce a hybrid, stronger than all the rest, the so-called irregulars. So far, the attempts had been failures, always resulting in a monster, with powers similar to both races. Eventually, they reached an obvious conclusion. Mixing supernatural powers with humans always weakened the final result. The trainer has good news. She said Selma's son is truly exceptional. Back to the old man, he was worried about Gustavo, thinking his son was weaker than usual. But the farmer confirmed the boy is a genius. He already taught the little prodigy how to mask his own energy. This shocked his father, since that's a difficult thing to do. Back to Selma, the trainer said, "There's something amazing about our boy. He already knows how to channel wild energy." This information left his mother completely shocked. Receiving such good news, the boy's parents were incredulous. They thought it was impossible. But both trainers reinforced the idea that the boy is special, a complete genius. Naturally, this made his parents happy. They were very proud of the heir born to them. The next day, our boy woke up a bit sleepy and said good morning to his mother. His father was already gone, having left early for work. The matriarch told the boy to dig in. Gustavo was surprised by the abundance of food. It was a beautiful breakfast that day. Selma asked if he had forgotten what was happening today. It's the day of the civil service exam. Remembering the farmer's guidance, our boy realized it would be complicated. All the training was for this day. In no time, our boy ate everything on the table. His mother asked if he was prepared. Gustavo said he studied hard for the test, to the point of dreaming about it. Poor guy, he actually had nightmares. Worried, Selma said, "The old man will be sad if the boy doesn't pass." But it's written all over her face. The matriarch doesn't want her son working for the government. It would be much better if he failed. Gustavo told her not to worry, although she doesn't know it. He is also an immortal. He also remembered past days when things went badly. He had to fight his mother in a boxing duel. Selma motivated the boy, saying he has the ability to pass a test like this. Going down in the elevator, Gustavo appreciated the characteristic bossa nova, playing in that kind of space. But he soon remembered, he possesses the senses of an immortal. So he immediately cleared his throat. He was singing along with Chico Bark until the elevator door opened in front of him. Outside stood a girl. Our protagonist became quite embarrassed. That girl seems to know Gustavo. She said that when she gets proposed to, he doesn't need to sing. Gustavo told Helena not to worry about that. The girl wanted to know when he was going to confess his feelings. But the protagonist said she isn't his type. This ended up making the girl use a good part of her strategic advantage, moving all her troops ready for attack. After putting the border situation at risk, on the verge of exacerbated conflict, Helena stated she is a very beautiful and smart woman. But these threats were ineffective on Gustavo. He exited the elevator very calmly, saying the girl shouldn't do that all the time. While walking down the street, he asked not to be followed by her. Helena wanted to know what he was going to do. Gustavo said it was the civil service exam. This left the girl very surprised. He never imagined our protagonist would do something for the government. Saying he was busy, Gustavo tried to untangle himself from her. She said she's going to college soon. She's a year younger, but she's going to an all-women's place. Since so many boys desire her intensely, Gustavo told her to focus on her studies. Seeing him leaving, Helena said she would love to date him, but our protagonist ignored everything, which makes any girl even more revolted. Gustavo realized this girl hasn't changed at all. She is very stubborn and bold. The bus was now heading to its destination. Gustavo entered a large building. He had arrived early, but still needed to know where to go. Going to the building secretaries. He said he came to take the special exam. A very muscular man in a suit asked if he was going to take the test. His look was threatening, and he tried to intimidate our boy. It was as if there was a lot of disbelief in those eyes, as he asked to see our protagonist's identification. After checking the data, Gustavo went to the elevator. On another floor, a woman asked for his documents once more. Only she was very polite and did it with ease, telling Gustavo to follow that corridor to the end. Finally, he arrived at a door. It's the special exam room. Gustavo hoped the place was soundproof, as he was sure there would be a lot of blood that day, and the building is in the middle of the city, entering a state of alert. Gustavo began to prepare for what might happen. When he passed through there, he was sure the exam would be much worse than the training. But to his surprise, he found a completely empty room. Inside was a man who said Gustavo was the first to arrive. This poor guy is completely bald, and he asked for our boy's documents. Baldness found a cure in this reality. It's rare to find a bald person. This can only mean one thing. He is bald by choice handing over his documents. Gustavo noticed that the people in that place seemed very suspicious. The bald man said the boy's number is 48 and pointed to where he should sit. None of this looked like the training. Gustavo was expecting to be attacked at any moment, so he remained in a complete state of alert, preparing for anything that could happen in that place. After a few minutes, the room filled with candidates. They all had books and notes. It was then that the protagonist felt the biggest shock of his entire life. The bald man finally stood up from the table. He imagined everyone was prepared and asked if anyone needed a pen. Our protagonist started sweating cold. He raised his hand discreetly, signaling that he also needed a pen. There were many questions in the air of that environment, but our poor boy had no answers. He was sure something was wrong, but didn't know who to blame. Our protagonist's training sessions were unnecessary. Suffering even so, he had done the best he could to prepare, so he could pass the test too. Only a small problem happened. A real test was about to happen in the next few minutes. Something must be wrong, and our boy didn't even have a pen to take this test. The bald man decided to help him. Giving the boy a pen, it was completely conventional. Assigned, they were going to take a normal theoretical exam. It even resembled school tests. Our boy felt like a joke. He also noticed that everyone there had excellent appearance. Some had potential to become celebrities. But in the middle of all those extras, someone stood out. Even this citizen's hands were beautiful. Looks like a magazine cover. The citizen noticed he was being watched, but decided to ignore our protagonist. Embarrassed by all this, Gustavo hoped he hadn't been considered a weirdo. Some people entered the room. They were bringing very large panels, placing the protagonist inside a cubicle. All this was part of the preparation for the exam to be held. One person ended up arriving late. It was candidate number 50. Even so, this person was accepted. In a traditional test, they would have been kicked out. Reading the first words of the test, Gustavo realized it would be difficult. This wasn't what he had prepared for. Walking on knives is much easier. But the boy's eyes noticed something interesting. The first question was about a leg injury and what he should do, despite everything that was easy to answer. The correct response is stop the bleeding. A wound that size isn't dangerous for immortals. He learned this practically in the company of a crazy farmer. All those questions related to field knowledge he already possessed, since our boy never went into shock from losing blood. The crazy farmer exploited that with great joy. In case you can't dodge a knife, the test wants to know what to do. The answer is to defend with one of your arms. Everything seemed very easy because our boy was very well prepared. It almost feels like that Indian movie where the protagonist gets all the answers right, even without knowing how to read. For those interested, the movie's name is Slumdog Millionaire. Excellent, by the way. That test serves to discover if candidates know their immortal bodies, something our boy learned very well. Finding the correct answers was easy. He wasn't just training, he was studying too, and didn't even realize it. The last question was very interesting. It was about how an immortal can be killed, excluding drowning and being buried. For our boy, the answer was very obvious. He had finished the test and wanted to know how much time had passed. The bald proctor knew it was way too early. He figured our protagonist must be giving up, since there was still an hour left. He told him he could hand in the test and leave. Our boy walked out of that room. He met the polite girl who had welcomed him earlier, the one with the short hair. She told him the information there was confidential. That's why she needed to get the protagonist's signature. He also mentioned that he's a human hybrid, still being very friendly. The girl wished him good luck. This made Gustavo very happy, showing his lack of experience. After being treated nicely by the first pretty woman he saw, he immediately started believing she was into him. That night back in the building, the bald man was grading some tests. Our protagonist's exam was truly exceptional. The final answer was correct. Strangulation, freezing, burning, or being ground up. All are extremely dangerous for an immortal. The truth is killing an immortal is hard, and they become desensitized to it over time. That's why they need to be taught about dangerous situations. The last question is the most important one. It checks if the candidates know their own bodies. They can regenerate, but that doesn't mean they're immune to death. They still need to be careful. And that half-human in particular showed a lot of potential, at least theoretically. But our protagonist doesn't look like an immortal. He was the first to arrive and the first to leave. He didn't even bring a pen. 2 weeks later, his phone rang. Gustavo got the news that he had passed the test. And that wasn't all. He had something to show his mom. He passed with the highest score. That shocked the matriarch. But showing she's a mom like any other, she was very happy with the news and had to share it with her husband to celebrate. Gustavo asked if he could eat a lot that day, and his mom approved the request. The old man soon arrived home, and our protagonist was very happy to see him. But the attention was focused on the food. The old man was bringing soon enough. Steaks were being prepared, and the small family was celebrating the good news. The old man knew his son would pass. The matriarch was also happy with the result. Gustavo said the test was much easier than expected. That crazy farmer really knew what he was doing. The interviews would happen soon. A much easier stage the matriarch wanted to know which department Gustavo was going to. The old man said he'd probably work for the Ministry of Interior and Security. That made our boy a little curious. He noticed his dad was trying to avoid the truth, but his wife didn't catch on. Gustavo was trying to imagine why the government hires immortals and what they need to do. The boy had many questions, but he was sure his dad would keep the secret. That night, he asked the old man for some tips, but he refused to say anything. Our protagonist enjoyed passing, but his happiness was temporary. The second stage of the exam, the interviews arrived quickly. His dad didn't share any information. He just told his son to answer truthfully, because the interview was meant to gauge his character. As he left all dressed up for the interview, his mom got a little anxious, but she said the boy would do very well. Gustavo thanked her for the words. Inside the elevator, he was thinking about how it would go down, checking out his own appearance. Gustavo started believing he could be a celebrity. Helena ended up witnessing this. Our boy lost in his own reflection. Gustavo couldn't understand how they met so often. He even thought he was being followed. But Helena said she was just heading in the same direction. She said she liked to take some classes with the boy, but Gustavo said he was very busy. However, she mentioned that the boy looked very handsome, in a suit full of confidence. Our protagonist said he already knew that. He was already in the waiting room for the interview. All the candidates seemed to be preparing, as if it were a corporate job. Gustavo soon spotted the guy from last time, the very handsome one. Once again their eyes met, and the guy looked away. Gustavo didn't know what that meant, but decided he wasn't going to sit next to that citizen. Right now, everyone was waiting patiently until number 48 was called. Our protagonist, Gustavo, entered the interview room. The first guy he saw was a redhead with very white skin. He looked like a candle. That was probably his nickname, too. Next to this exotic guy was the short-haired girl, the one who had been so friendly. The first question asked was why he wanted to apply. The natural answer was because his dad made him. But that wouldn't be very good. Our boy said he wanted to know his own limits, and that he also wished to fulfill a personal dream, protecting this nation and the people living in this land. The redhead asked if our boy was willing to sacrifice himself for others. Gustavo said he wasn't sure. It all depended on the situation, because he needed to think efficiently before sacrificing himself. The examiner started taking notes, which made Gustavo worried. Several questions were asked, and Gustavo answered obviously. The girl asked who he would save from drowning. If both were at risk, his mom or his girlfriend. Gustavo said he would save both, because he's an excellent swimmer. If he had a single bullet and 2 targets to take down, Gustavo would shoot one and beat the crap out of the other. A truly funny scene to imagine. It made the friendly girl smile a little. A few days later, Gustavo was relaxing, watching videos on his phone. His laughter filled the room. The matriarch thought it was weird that he stayed all day doing nothing. Since that interview, she said he should do something, but he soon realized he might get corrected by his mom, which would be terrible. Gustavo said he had some events planned and an activity for that day. Play games, eat, poop, and sleep. That answer awakened his mother's fury. She said the instincts of Transformers are complicated. If they take over, completely terrible. Things can happen. There are many cases of violence and things that could lead to heavy jail time. There's even a legend in that place about a boy who succumbed to his desires and kept howling at the moon. It's very important that Gustavo learns to control himself. But watching the news, our boy knew magic users were the biggest cause of problems. The matriarch said there's a way to control these impulses, which is by mastering oneself. That's why they used to hike in the mountains. When he first awakened, that's one way to learn self-control. That's why she recommended the boy find a girlfriend soon, because that would help too. Since if he didn't control his own instincts, he could do something very dangerous. Quite curious, she asked if he liked boys, and our protagonist said no. Another month locked in his room was really worrying. She even asked if he didn't want to do what he originally wanted, since the old man suggested he postpone starting the new job. Remembering the interview, we are informed that the boy had been approved. Now he would have to face a 5-week course. Reading that document, the boy almost went into shock. The starting salary was $45,000, plus various benefits. It was simply absurd. A truly enchanting proposal. Gustavo wanted to share it with his parents, but the short-haired secretary knew he only had an immortal father that could cause problems in their marriage, and the secretary made that very clear. That's why he couldn't tell his mother anything. Our protagonist said with all sincerity that he wished to become the best employee at the Ministry of Interior. The matriarch doubted his ambitions, since the boy just stayed in his room all day. But having that conversation made her a little calmer. The truth is, she was very relieved about the direction the boy's life was taking. If the youth of the Transformers had someone like him, it would be completely different. Gustavo said everything was fine and was happy to be a hybrid. In the past, hybrids like him had major problems because they couldn't control themselves. Our boy was a great exception. He was better off with that set of characteristics. He could sleep peacefully and eat almost anything. The course schedule finally arrived for him. Those who passed were already heading to this new place. Our protagonist was already waiting to board the bus, too ready to start a new stage of his life. Inside the bus, Gustavo observed the people. Outside, they were very hot. That was a clear sign that they were in summer. But inside that bus, the climate is perfect. Even the glass was made to block the heat. Plus, half the seats are empty. Gustavo hadn't noticed before, but realized it when he stepped onto the bus. He can tell who the hybrids are. Besides their different appearance, they have distinct auras. It's something. The treatment lets him perceive with his intuition. And one of those hybrids is the guy sitting next to him. That good-looking dude listening to some conversations. Our boy realized people are getting to know each other better. It's the first step to making new friends, which can be very useful. The old man advised the boy to do this. He said he might be surprised to discover that unusual meetings can create great friendships. And he's happy that Gustavo has become a young adult. It's good the kid can sleep in the city, because his old man couldn't. Gustavo asked how it was for him. The old man said he had terrible insomnia, because he could hear everything. We needed to sleep. Transformers learn to control their own impulses. This helps master the senses. The old man had to wear earplugs. He even bought a 4-story building just to sleep in the middle of it, with walls full of soundproofing. But if the boy can sleep so well, it's because he can control his own senses very well. Gustavo realized this isn't easy to achieve, but for him it came very naturally. Since Transformers can do this easily, it's a real benefit, the old man said. His new colleagues will be very sensitive, and he needs to pay attention to that. Remembering this conversation, Gustavo called out to the pretty boy, seeing as it's already the 3rd time they've met. Even so, the background character insists on staying silent. Actually, he acted despicably, asking the protagonist if they know each other. They've already made eye contact a few times. Our protagonist tries to say they had seen each other before, but the extra insists on saying this is the first time. Trying to follow his dad's advice isn't easy. Gustavo is already very irritated because the princess next to him either has a terrible memory or is just a shitty liar giving up on him. He decided to look for someone else. A blonde girl, our fighter, tried to act politely, and the first thing the girl said is that he must be a hybrid too. It must be from his father's side. The boy must have had a peaceful childhood and probably doesn't even know where they're going now. After all, he's just an immature child. A comment that made our boy even more upset. The girl also said the protagonist's observation skills are very poor. They are all very sensitive. That's why they're sitting in the aisle, with the curtains closed. Talking in that environment is complicated, annoying for all of them. The ones making too much noise are the hybrids, because they are less sensitive. That's why she told this foolish, ignorant boy to be quiet, but what Gustavo really wanted was to slap this petulant extra upside the head. It's time to solve things through violence. At least that's what he wanted. The truth is she isn't wrong. The old man told our boy his nickname used to be Mr. Sensitive even after he learned to control his senses. But being sensitive is no excuse for being rude. And after those words, everyone fell silent. Opening a bag of chips there would make our boy completely hated. That was when he started to feel something extremely dangerous. It's our protagonist's belly, wishing to release some farts. Those damn gases want to know the outside world. But Gustavo doesn't give a damn. Screw the extras. It's time to give an olfactory gift to the blonde girl, who smelled our boy's putrid scent, a stench that spread completely throughout that bus. Almost fainting, the blonde girl said. The protagonist is really very rude, which makes Gustavo extremely relieved. He managed to give her what he wanted. Sweet revenge hours after the gassiest accident. They managed to arrive at their destination. All the candidates are getting off with their luggage. Gustavo doesn't know where they are. It seems to be out in the country, and someone came to talk to him. It's those noisy hybrids who seem to be very nice. They asked what the farter had eaten. Gustavo immediately recognized both of them and said he just needed a fart. Right, then the green-haired guy is named Johan, while the redhead is called Redhead. I'm not learning another Korean name. It's out of the question, Gustavo said. The redhead is the one who should have been the farter, since he looks like someone who does that. That comment made his new friend smile. With just a little conversation, the redhead realized the protagonist really doesn't know what's happening. The place where they are now is a large training center. A command voice ordered everyone to start forming lines of 5 columns. It's time to start moving quickly. Gustavo realized there are more people there. Approximately 100 young people. Another bizarre thing is that they only ran a little bit, and everyone is already very out of breath. Our boy can't even believe this is really happening. And what is even more unusual, the one who seems to be an instructor is actually the bald guy from the exam. The candle comrade and the nice girl are also there. The bald guy said that over the next 30 days, they would train those youths, but he's already disappointed in them. The physical shape of these recruits is despicable. Then he ordered them to look back, to look at the trees full of malice. The bald guy wants to find out who the first 15 will be. To get to the other side, a herd of extras started moving with great speed. Among them are the hybrids, as well as the blonde girl and the silent princess. Gustavo wasn't even intimidated by their speed. Hopping on one foot, he would arrive ahead of everyone. His goal is to be the 14th to arrive, so as not to draw too much attention right at the start. Remembering past conversations, Gustavo was instructed not to let anyone find out he is a transformer, as this would bring problems. Normal people would look at him worryingly, believing the protagonist is a ticking time bomb, a future danger to society. Controlling his pace in that race, our boy managed to reach the position he wanted. To improve his acting even more, he pretended to be out of breath, saying that was very difficult really. These recruits look like veteran smokers. The bald guy said the rest can leave because they don't meet the minimum requirement. To be there looking at them threateningly. For those who stayed, it's time to do some push-ups. Every time they touched the ground, the instructor said they must say they are losers. Gustavo thought that would be fun, like a big company course. But things are getting pretty complicated. Even a nice lady is threatening, terrifying all those recruits who were having great difficulty doing the push-ups. A boy among them started shaking a lot. He might crap his pants soon. But the bald guy told everyone to stop. If it were in his day, that never would have happened. These recruits are the worst in history. The bald guy told that hybrid to pay attention and not shout in there, because he'll rupture everyone's eardrums. In that place, they speak in a controlled manner, a rule everyone must follow. Gustavo realized the immortals are all weaklings. The bald guy continued saying that in his day, none of them would be approved. Then he asked if that recruit wanted to leave or be punished, full of motivation. The recruit preferred the punishment for the bald guy. That's great. Sounds of something breaking were heard by everyone. Our protagonist got scared. That sounded like a bone snapping. He needs to take a little peek. So he bent over and looked down. Really, that poor guy's arm ended up getting the prize. Gustavo observed all this carefully. But for them being immortals, this isn't the worst that can happen. Presenting the rules to everyone. Baldy said punishments are broken bones. Cursing is 2 points, speaking loudly. 1 point fighting without permission is 5 points. The rest they'll find out soon enough. The bald guy asked if the recruit liked that show. Our protagonist started getting nervous, moving away from the platoon. Bald instructor said once again that they are all weak, ordering everyone to stand up. Even those who came in first place are bad too. The bald instructor's name is Lee. He will be responsible for this platoon. The nice girl said they're going to perfect everyone's physical capabilities because regeneration capacity is associated with their stamina. Even being newbies, they must already be able to regenerate easily. To Gustavo, this girl must be the nicest instructor. Her name is Dare My God. What a horrible fucking name. She'll keep being the nice one and is the technical instructor. It was the candle guy's turn to introduce himself. His name is Kim, and he said he's going to kill all those newbies. Cold words from a petulant background character. The nice woman had to translate them. Candle instructor is going to teach the students about their body's immortality. Gustavo Rieles, the crazy farmer, had already beaten him to it. The bald instructor said, anyone who wants to leave can go right now. He'd actually enjoy watching them all clear out. Gustavo decided to stay for the first month. He's sure things will get easier later. He just needs to avoid getting shot in the head. Baldy ordered silence. He finally welcomed the recruits, announcing they had arrived in hell. 10 recruits per dorm time to suit up. Gustavo was impressed by the facility. It looked straight out of a bad horror movie. Johan was drenched from training and wanted a shower. His presence, along with the redheads, made Gustavo feel a bit more comfortable, especially since the blonde girl and the silent princess were also there. Next to our protagonist stood a guy panting heavily, a real greasy fellow. Gustavo realized not all immortals are skinny. There's another very different dude there, probably a foreigner and some very pale. Peculiar twins, there's also a generic girl. Even her black hair looks faded. They weren't separated by gender. Gustavo wondered where he was supposed to change. The blonde warned him not to peek, as cold as a block of ice. Gustavo replied he had absolutely no interest in her. She didn't believe him, though. She was already judging him, without even knowing he's a shifter. The pale girl suggested establishing some rules for getting along. Gustavo noticed her voice was very pretty. The silent princess stated that hygiene activities must be done outside the room. Anyone who breaks this rule should be killed. The blonde agreed, so did the protagonist's friends. Going against our boy, in fact. Everyone agreed, leaving our protagonist alone in his stance. The silent princess emphasized that hygiene is crucial. They couldn't forget to brush their teeth. Everyone agreed with that recommendation, which made Gustavo very uncomfortable. Like it or not, he's stuck living with these people for the next month. He decided to go along with the majority to make his days in this hell camp easier. The recruits are eating now. They've been notified that teams will be numbered 1 through 10 after the meal. Each team needs to choose a representative leader. Our boy got anxious about that. The blonde girl thinks the silent princess is best qualified. Even the bland brothers agree, and the friends of our background character are inclined to agree too. Gustavo decided to speak up this time. He said the silent princess isn't very friendly. A good team leader needs many qualities, and being approachable is one of them. Blonde girl told him he was wrong. The only thing that matters is blood quality, and a hybrid's opinion is insignificant. That girl's arrogance filled Gustavo with rage. He wanted to rub her face in the dirt. Gustavo thought training would start right after lunch, but the recruits were issued more gear instead. Cheap boots and other useless junk. Before resting for the day, they had a theory class. Now, they had to pay attention to a video. The instructor said they all knew the company. Gustavo was the only one who didn't, so he asked Johan for info. The place is called Hawaii Communications. It's a Korean name, but I had to change it because I just can't take it anymore. Anyway, this training is meant to select the best. It's a government-funded organization. They aren't civil servants, but they work for the state. But the instructor claimed that in his day, they wouldn't even get hired if they couldn't walk on knives. Our boy is already sick of listening to this instructor's. Back in my day stories, his advice for recruits who don't want to go crazy: do exactly what he says, speaking to someone off screen. The instructor said, that's all the recruits need to know. Then the nice girl appeared in the video. Their goal is to teach the immortals how to use their abilities correctly. They must remember this constantly. Now, they can all go to sleep after a nice shower. Gustavo was anxiously waiting to lie in bed. Now, he can finally sleep peaceful. But his super-sensitive friends complained too much, whining that their roommates breathe too loudly. Johan asked our protagonist to stop breathing, suggesting he go outside and die quietly. For what he learned from the old man, Gustavo knows it takes 3 years for them to learn how to sleep properly. Since the oldest guy, there is only 23. Everyone is having a hard time. Curious, Gustavo asked how his friend manages to sleep. The boy said he has a trump card. He forces his body to lose consciousness. Since they are immortal, it's not a problem. Gustavo offered to help him. The boy was skeptical, warning that too much force shouldn't be used. Once it took him 2 days to wake up, but he said it too late. Our boy was already relieving stress by choking out his new roommate, scaring the hell out of the redhead. Seeing that the other guy was speechless, he was suddenly very interested in this human-shaped sleeping pill. The redhead was next in line, anxious to sleep too. This sparked the interest of the other roommates. When asked who else was interested, several hands shot up across the dorm. Our protagonist had a lot of fun that night. He sent almost everyone off to dreamland, but 2 people still needed to be sent to the arms of Morpheus. For those who don't know, Morpheus is the Greek god of dreams. The blonde realized our protagonist isn't completely useless. It was time for Gustavo's revenge. He said he wouldn't help her. The blonde girl argued that they are roommates, and if he helped her now, the favor would be returned. But Gustavo didn't give a crap about her speech. However, halfway through walking away, he had a brilliant idea. He decided he would help the girl. Using a single blow, he struck the base of her neck with significant force. Since it was a consensual attack, it cleansed our protagonist's soul. Only the silent princess remained. Gustavo asked who was next, but the silent princess just laid back down, ignoring the protagonist. If that's her decision, fine. Our protagonist needs sleep too. Everyone slept soundly that night, with the exception of one very proud person. Gustavo Rieles. Bedtime was going to be the happiest time of the day. The bald instructor returned to his duties once again. All the recruits are running and suffering greatly. In the nice instructor's class, She's trying to teach the boys to be more careful, even if they are immortal. The protagonist's combat partner is bragging, claiming he's fought before. He thinks he can beat our boy's ass. He charges, furiously ready to throw him to the ground. But that didn't even scare Gustavo. He hit the poor guy's face with generous force, knocking his partner out cold on the floor, much to the instructor's delight. Finally, it was time to run on knives. Traditional training for immortals. Candlehead instructor ordered the recruits to run. Many are already terrified. Even the protagonist is worried. Those blades are only 2 centimeters long, and he's used to running on blades triple that size. A week past bedtime arrived. Gustavo wants to know if the silent princess is going to play hard to get. Today he loves being rejected by that citizen because he knows she doesn't sleep right. But as soon as he arrived at the dorm, it felt like everyone was waiting for something to happen. Gustavo asked Johan what was up. The guy said something happened last night. The team leader couldn't sleep. He left the dorm and got into a fight with other guys who were also suffering from insomnia. That's why several recruits were staring at them today. Gustavo started hearing footsteps heading toward their dorm. The silent princess said that's his problem, and she doesn't want anyone to intervene. Outside, some angry recruits appeared. They all started exchanging glances. The leader of those thugs came, looking for one specific person. Our protagonist, Gustavo, immediately identified himself, wondering what this citizen wanted with him. While staring each other down, Gustavo asked what this background character wanted. At first, he couldn't even find the right words. Quite embarrassed, the extra said he would also like to have a beautiful night's sleep with him. That caught our boy completely by surprise. Without a second thought, Gustavo declared he likes women. The background character had to backtrack fast, clarifying he just wanted to sleep peacefully too. He felt like he was dying. His squad mates couldn't sleep either, and they were desperate for help outside. Gustavo asked how the recruit knew about it. The guy said rumors spread fast, and just so he knew Johan was a massive gossip. He was the one who made that joke too, telling the extra he needed to say he wanted to sleep with the protagonist. That explained a lot when asked if it was hard. Gustavo replied that it didn't take long. That night, he helped everyone on Team 1 fall into a deep sleep. The next morning, their team leader, the tattooed extra, seemed very friendly toward our protagonist. He praised Gustavo's skill with his hands, saying they helped him sleep incredibly well. Gustavo warned him that phrasing it like that would give people the wrong idea. During training that day, everyone continued to suffer under the pressure of the bald instructor. But then the instructor noticed something unusual. An overweight immortal in the old days. That would have been unacceptable. Our protagonist noticed. The chubby recruit was having a hard time. The poor soul had to stop mid-run to throw up a little. Gustavo asked if he was okay. The chubby guy told our boy to keep running. He seemed to have given up, saying he wouldn't be able to finish the race. Gustavo pulled him off the ground. He told him if he was going to quit, he shouldn't have even started. He promised to help him. They were going to reach the finish line together. Now back to running. Gustavo tried to motivate the heavy-set recruit so he wouldn't stop again. The bald instructor saw what was happening and obviously taunted them, asking if they were a couple. When they finally arrived, the instructor told them time was up. He was deducting 5 points from each of them. The chubby recruit was worried. He knew what the punishment meant, but our protagonist told him it was fine. It wasn't important to him. Still, the other guy remained very anxious. He asked why the protagonist had done it. Gustavo considered it a stupid question. He didn't need a reason for what he did. Camaraderie was fundamental to him. Without it, he was just a moving body. Gustavo remembered being saved when he was little. That person hadn't needed a reason either. In the locker room, Johan asked if our boy was going to help the silent princess, since he was having trouble sleeping. Gustavo said that Jerk always refused help. Johan remarked that the two of them were truly exceptional. But our protagonist noticed something about the redhead boy. Whispering to Johan, he asked what had happened. Apparently, it was something at the convenience store. Earlier that day, the blonde girl's wallet had fallen on the floor, and he discovered her name was Miho Wu. The redhead went to return it, noting how funny it was that he hadn't learned her name until now. But his politeness was brutally rejected. The blonde girl wasn't interested. That was why the redhead was acting so sad. Gustavo told him he didn't need to be like that. But the truth was the poor guy was completely in love, which impressed our protagonist even more about the guy. Walking back to the dorms, they kept talking about the girl, and Gustavo asked what his friend knew about her. As they got closer to the barracks, our protagonist saw something interesting. Several recruits were waiting in the hallway. They were all looking for the protagonist, the bus farter who could make them sleep smoothly. They had come to ask for his help because they needed sleep too. Gustavo and the redhead knew exactly who had caused this. Johann, the great gossip, trying to defend himself, the gossip claimed. He had just been praising the protagonist's ability. But faced with so many recruits, Gustavo wondered how he was going to put them all to sleep. It would take at least an hour to sort this out. Our boy's nights had just become very busy. It was his turn to put a girl to sleep too. As usual, Gustavo told her to dream of him. Girl asked if that was really necessary. Gustavo told her to dream of a hot guy instead. And right after that, he put her to sleep. Finally, he could return to his own room. There was someone there he was very interested in. The silent princess, after several days. Completely tired and exhausted, he still kept rejecting the protagonist. Gustavo had repeated that move so many times. He'd become an expert now. He made the recruits come to him to make his job easier. The instructors didn't interfere either. If the recruits were sleeping well, it was because the protagonist was helping. He had become a celebrity, the sleeping pill, the neck cutter. Sandman himself, until one nickname got back to him. Neckboy, our boy, wasn't too happy about that one. However, he was treated with great politeness by all the other recruits. Delinquent redhead, the hairy guy who was the first to ask for help, frequently offered him candy. At least that phase of training was coming to an end. It had been 20 years since their first appearance, and the bald instructor was teaching the recruits about it. They classified the monsters using numbers. Starting with number 1, the higher the number, the later the monster's first appearance was. Each student's tablet showed photos of these creatures. The most frequent ones they could kill immortals. Some invaders had to be avoided at all costs, and those ones had names. He introduced the Blue Knight. When it first appeared, it defeated 500 armed people. As the class continued, our boy thought about what he had learned so far. That company existed to fight the invaders. The world might be safer now, but the fear of the portals was still real. A defense agency was necessary. That was why Hawaii Communications existed. That explained the high salary. Knowing the truth made our protagonist even more enthusiastic. He didn't need to become a Marine. He was something better than that now. He just needed to know why. His father wanted him to take this path too, since it was such a dangerous profession. That part of their course ended up being a bit more theoretical. They were learning about useful artifacts. The nice instructor showed them a device that carried blood so they wouldn't lose consciousness. Another similar device perfected their senses and increased physical capabilities. But Gustavo started getting interested in this part of the class. The instructor warned them to be careful, as it could be addictive, causing lifelong side effects. Given the number of drugs she presented there, Gustavo realized there must be many addicts among the immortals. In Candlehead's class, they continued their orientation. Slowly, Gustavo began to influence his companions, who were also helping those having trouble. Some started sleeping on their own and didn't need the protagonist's help anymore. The training routine was running smoothly now, and the chubby recruit didn't need help anymore. The end of training arrived. No one had managed to get expelled, despite the punishments, with a smile on his face. The bald instructor congratulated them all. They were now employees of Hawaii Communications. The recruits celebrated. This was really good news. It was Instructor Candle's turn to announce the results, which would define which department the recruits would go to. The top 3 would also receive a bonus. If it was money, our boy was ready to take it. It was time to announce third place. Gustavo was getting very anxious. The spot went to a random background character. Even our protagonist didn't know who he was. The bald instructor said this citizens department would be chosen with caution, but he made it clear he wanted to join security. And the instructor said they would decide that soon. Now it was time to announce second place. It was the Silent Princess. Several recruits were already expecting this, as it was in that person's blood. Gustavo watched closely, as he still didn't know what that meant. He remembered a conversation he had with his friends. Johann was surprised our boy didn't know so many things. The Silent Princess came from a very traditional, pure-blood family. Gustavo thought he was a noble. The redhead explained there were various lineages. The pure ones managed to be much better, with superior qualities, and the silent princess came from a family with one of the purest bloodlines in the whole place. Regardless, Gustavo admired that citizen's determination. Even if he was a huge jerk, he was competent. Oh my God. Look at what's happening. If the silent princess was in second, the redhead started thinking he might be in first place. Gustavo and Johann felt sorry for him. Their friend was truly delusional. The first place winner was about to be announced. Gustavo wasn't even surprised by how it was going to play out. Contrary to all expectations, first place went to the blonde girl. Gustavo doesn't like that chick at all. She makes zero effort to be nice to anyone, but he has to admit she's wicked smart. She developed a strategy to maximize her points. Basically, she wouldn't lift a finger to help her teammates, unless there was something in it for her. That's exactly why Gustavo can't stand her. Looking at those three, Gustavo started thinking, would he run into them in the future? But then he remembered he has no clue who that third background character even is. All recruits have ample time off until 2 p.m. The next day, Gustavo suggested they throw a party. While they were chatting, one of the instructors called out to our boy, asking to speak with him later. His colleagues got curious about that. Another instructor also approached him and slipped him a personal contact number. This just made our boy's friends even more anxious, dying to know why this was happening to Gustavo. It's obvious these instructors want to recruit him for their own departments. The training wasn't just to mold them, but to showcase them too. The delinquent redhead is thanking Gustavo now. Thanks to him, he managed to sleep peacefully. A cute girl exchanged phone numbers with him, saying they should hang out sometime. Several background characters became colleagues, with our protagonist holding him in high esteem. This was something Gustavo definitely wasn't expecting. Seeing those results, our boy realized the training had been a massive success. Back at the dorms, Johann asked why he took so long. Gustavo claimed he's a very popular person and had to sign some autographs on the way. While all the recruits were relaxing, someone asked for their attention. A man in a suit entered the room. Gustavo knows everyone was distracted, but he was surprised. No one noticed this guy approaching. It's a sign that he had masked his own presence. The man in the suit was clearing the path for an even more important person, someone who heard this year's recruits were talented. That old man's name is for the love of God. Another crappy name, I'm calling him Mufasa. He is the CEO of this company. Knowing he's an important figure, the recruits salute him. Our protagonist read information about Mufasa. He's a veteran soldier, an immortal from the first generation, and one of the 10 most powerful. He asked if the recruits enjoyed the training. Hearing their positive response, he said they were lying. Nobody likes that stuff. Cutting your own body just to let it regenerate is crazy. But that training could save their lives one day. Mufasa states this from personal experience. Called for the silent princess, who stood up immediately. Mufasa praised the girl's work. He also called for the blonde girl, who had also stood up. He said he has high expectations for her, but our boy wants to know what he's doing in that dorm. Maybe his CO isn't a very busy person. And then he ended up calling for our protagonist, who definitely wasn't expecting that. Mufasa knows he's a hybrid, even knowing that he said the boy didn't do bad at all. He asked the boy's age and if he has a girlfriend, as if he were interested in our young man. He said he'd see him at work soon. As a farewell, he said he'd give gifts to all of them. Johann was surprised by the treatment Gustavo received. He asked if they were relatives, but our boy said it's the first time seeing that old man. They consider the possibility that Mufasa likes boys, but some know he has a daughter. After leaving the gift in the dorm, the instructor said they were lucky and should use it wisely. It looks like alcohol. The redhead went to try and approach the blonde girl, but ended up being immediately ignored. Gustavo and Johann admire that citizen's courage. He keeps getting brutally rejected. Wasting no time, the chubby kid went to see what it was. Since his stomach was curious, he discovered it's not alcohol. It's a cocktail of substances that mortals love because it helps with sleep. That box holds 10 bottles, one for each of them. The individual value is 3 million Korean won. Someone seems to have thrown their can on the floor, catching everyone's attention. The can was already empty. The silent princess drank its entire contents. First thing she did was look at our protagonist and curse at him. He ended up getting quite embarrassed by that. In no time, the silent princess was in the deepest sleep, a sign that little can is truly powerful. Our boy and his friends started chatting casually. Then the blonde girl ended up approaching him. She thanked him for everything he did. During that period, Gustavo almost didn't react. But what was really impressive is that the girl slipped a note into his hand, making it clear it was just for him, which left the redhead full of envy. Feeling like a soap opera heartthrob, Gustavo enjoyed the moment, since he had said the redhead has zero chance. Apparently the redhead doesn't own a mirror at home. Johan claimed both of their colleagues are horrendous. That note is a warning the blonde girl heard. The CEO usually recruits talent. This can accelerate success, or turn his life into a living hell. So she told the boy to be cautious. Gustavo got interested in that information. He'd like to know how the blonde girl got it. It seems she knows a lot more than she shares. Gustavo told his friend that the message was nothing special, but he couldn't show it to him. After drinking the potion, everyone was completely knocked out. Finally, their first day of work arrived. Gustavo went to external security team number 3. A man was already waiting for him. Our protagonist thought it might be the team chief, but as soon as another person saw him, he heard the citizen's disappointment, an extra with visibly tired eyes. Answering the phone, he asked if this was a joke, because he received a rookie in his division. He had asked for someone with experience, someone with a few years in the profession. Another person who was there told our boy to sit down. A woman with red hair speaking with the team chief. She wants to know what they should do, but no one there has answers for her, given that she decided she's going to train Gustavo, who is also very uncomfortable with this situation. Calling for him, she said she's going to present the poor guy's duties. She handed him a list of every worker in that company. He must memorize all the names by the next day and burn the material afterward. She also showed him the desk where he should sit. One phone is for security calls and the other for conventional calls. After giving a few more guidelines, Gustavo said he understood everything, having been introduced to the office. The red-haired woman said she's going back to her investigation. Our boy started his corporate work, which seems pretty boring. At the end of that day, he headed down a few bottles of hard liquor in the company of his friends. He said he has some questions to ask. He asked what their supervisors are like. To his surprise, he discovered they are cool. Since Johan is a huge gossiper, he's already full of information. Mufasa interfered directly in the protagonist department, and external security team number 3 is very special. Connected to headquarters, working with dispatches. It seems to be a very difficult job, and everyone there is highly capable. They also have a particular reputation, being a graveyard for employees in their first year. The team leader has the nickname the Blender, which is what he does to rookies. They're also highly coveted by other departments, since they're so good now. About the red-haired woman, a superhuman made through drug experiments. In an attempt to understand more about those abilities, humans managed to create drugs capable of delivering powers. It's the result of long experiments produced by the government, but no one can say how it happens or how many people were tested. She is known as the Knife because she cuts rookies without any mercy. Incidentally, that mysterious woman is paying attention to the conversation. She's listening to the part where our protagonist said, "They seem like the Avengers because of the nicknames." That was when Gustavo's friends realized the great risk they were running. Only then did our boy feel chills, because the red-haired woman had asked him to memorize all those names, not learn everyone's personal history. After that reprimand, she simply walked away. The waiter felt so sorry for our protagonist that he gave him a portion of food on the house. Looking at those peanuts, Gustavo came to an obvious conclusion. He is screwed trying to get rid of the stress. He remembered he should have a little more fun at work, creating a fiction of an ideal world. That was when the phone rang one more time. Our protagonist identified himself, but since he got the other person's name wrong, he was immediately corrected by the redhead woman, the guy with bags under his eyes. And the team boss now think the rookie is an idiot. He's basically just a secretary there. But in his free time, he learns about other divisions, especially since he got popular with a nickname. Little Neck, the team leader, is named Lee, and he's a pureblood. He isn't prejudiced against hybrids, though. He's just a bit abrasive. He's also excellent in combat, one of the best in the whole company. When it comes to barehanded fighting, no one beats him. He also loves to curse a lot. Next up is Panda, the guy with the dark circles. He's a hybrid too. He can't fight or shoot, but he's a genius in his field. Knowing his limitations, he's specialized in strategy. Our protagonist doesn't know where this guy keeps his intelligence, but he does know Panda really likes cartoons. Finally, there's Citizen Kim, one of the few humans there. She went through elite training. She's the top performing human and one of the most notable people in the organization. She is cold as a block of ice, showing absolutely no emotion. Only the best work in external security. Gustavo knows these people must be incredible, even if their personalities are total trash. It's been a week since he started working. Our protagonist team headed to the camera room. It seems they have business to attend to. Our boy introduced himself to that other division. Bad guys noticed people were missing and discovered they were out in the field. Running a task looks like a test session is underway. And the guinea pig this time is the Silent Princess. That's a gravity machine made with portal technology. Bad guy said he already knows that, but the extra is explaining it for our protagonist's sake. Inside there, they can simulate gravity, 9 times stronger than Earth's. They ask rookies to do some exercises. Run a bit, do push-ups. Everyone has to do it, but Bad Guys doesn't seem to need to. The guy with glasses said, their rookie can handle 5 times gravity. As they increase the force, the poor thing started to suffer a bit. Gustavo had to hold back laughter. The redhead noticed immediately and asked if he found it funny. The gravity got so strong. The poor guy passed out time to shut off the machine. Bad Guys recommended our protagonist keep that smile on his face. But the man in the suit in the room said, our protagonist should have joined their team. It's finally time to test our little monster. Now that they're alone, they asked if they were being too hard on him. The suit guy said field work is very dangerous. Kim said she prefers an obedient dog to dead weight. To Bad Guys, the rookie doesn't know why they're acting this way, and he might end up resentful. But to stay on that team, he needs to be better than the others. Making him quit now will be better for everyone involved, because he could develop a sadism tailored to immortals, where they lose sensation in their bodies and become extremely dangerous and uncontrolled. If he fails this test, Lee will send our boy to a safer division, suitable for hybrids like him. Lee has no idea why Mufasa put this kid on the team. Anyway, then the test administrator said, the kid is good. They're already at gravity level 4. Surprising everyone, our boy is resisting it all. But for Lee, this guy is just average. They need someone with real potential. That's when he noticed. The protagonist hadn't slowed down yet. The machine operator confirmed it. Our boy is still moving normally. Gravity kept increasing up to an 8 times multiplier. That left the protagonist's entire team completely speechless. The operator asked if they should keep going, as gravity was already at 10 times. That made Lee swallow his words. He's facing something truly exceptional. Inside the device, Gustavo keeps moving. He remembers how they've been treating him until now, being completely looked down on, scolded for everything it's time for him to show. He's not just some average guy, even if he doesn't even know what this team does. Feeling the gravity get even more intense. Gustavo wonders what level it's at now. That should be crushing for any immortal. That's why the Silent Princess passed out. If it were the protagonist's friends, they would have blacked out in seconds. Now, he doesn't know how long he needs to keep this up. He just wanted to be a little better than the other guy. But he gave up on that idea. He's going to show everything he's capable of to see if he's paying attention. They asked him what 8 times 9 is. That didn't happen with the Silent Princess. And our boy answered correctly, since the kid's file says he's smart. Lee said to increase the multiplication difficulty, asking what 12 times 22 is. Once again, the boy answers correctly. Kim imagines the boy is in a trance state. Bad Guys said drugs can strengthen the mind, but they are very expensive. Lee guaranteed they'll examine our boy later to see if he used anything. The problem is if the result comes back negative. Lee doesn't know what to do after that. The experiment finally ended. Gustavo actually ended up liking it. He feels his body much lighter, even if it was just for a few minutes. He felt he had gotten stronger. As a hybrid between 2 supernatural beings, feeling something like this is very easy for him. Finally, the boy returns outside. Kim congratulated him being much nicer than usual. It was so sudden that Gustavo was left speechless. Lee asked what our boy is looking at. If he's idle, he needs to get back to work. Now, knowing our protagonist is exceptional, Lee wants to take a look at all the rookies' records. This started to worry Gustavo. He just wanted to be a little better than the Silent Princess before leaving. The machine operator called out to our boy. He said he's the one responsible for operating that machinery. He said our boy is welcome to swing by when he's off duty. But Lee is already visibly irritated. He wants to look at the rookie data. Our boy is now much more confident because that employee was nice to him. And Lee even wanted to check everyone's data. It's great for him to show what he's capable of. On the way to the room, Kim said she hadn't liked our boy's tone of voice. When he introduced himself, "This isn't a vacation trip. He's working." That's when Gustavo realized little had changed. Kim told him to keep up the pace, but our boy took that as encouragement. He's hoping to earn the respect of his new colleagues. Bad guys said they need to hurry. It's time to get back to work. Several books were placed in front of our boy. He needs to memorize it all. Once again, Gustavo realized nothing had changed. According to bad guys, there's data on invaders, the potion cocktails they use, and diagrams of the machines in that place too. It is necessary for the rookie to memorize it all. Gustavo thought he'd need a few months, but he was given only 4 days. Visibly dismayed, Gustavo asked what the advantage of memorizing all that was. That's when Lee arrived in the room. He noticed our boy wouldn't want to do that task. He needs to know that information if he doesn't want to be digested in an invader's stomach. Knowing the potions to use could also save his life. If he doesn't know the machines in that place, he won't be able to operate them. That's also fundamental. Even so, for days isn't much, but the woman said she only needed 3. Panda needed just 1, and the boss took 2. Days after 4 days, they'll test our boy. For every problem he gets wrong, they'll send him to the training center for an hour. Lee asked if the boy wants to quit, but our protagonist said nothing. He just said he would do the task. Everyone is starting to build expectations about him. Meanwhile, the gravity machine operator continues working. It seems he found something very interesting. When he talked to Lee, he had to repeat 12 times that. That guy is number 1. Lee had to acknowledge that. The rookie really does possess a powerful physique. Even a machine operator was intrigued. That hybrid might be a very special breed. Immortals don't usually have bodies that strong. If Lee wanted to toss the kid out, they'd take him, but the rude jerk turned down the offer. Now, that operator is wondering if Lee will train our boy. Personally, it sounds like someone turned on a blender. Determines if new hires are fit for duty. It also familiarizes them with new responsibilities. Our boy still has a lot to learn. Kim asked about the material used for bullet and blade-proof gear. Gustavo said, it's a special fiber made of leather and Kevlar. Lee said that answer was too short. Our boy added that the material is harder than diamond, absorbs impact, and protects against both extreme heat and cold. The team chief asked about number 64. That made our protagonist a little nervous. He didn't know what it was. After some thought, he realized it was the Knight of the Wheel. Lee asked if he was sure it was a guess, but our boy had to take the risk. Lee told the moron he just got it wrong. He called him an incompetent little piece of shit and said he shouldn't be so confident. When spouting such crap, it was just a test. They ask him 10 questions daily. Our boy gets 3 wrong every day. Now he's contemplating what to train first. Our boy went to work on body strengthening and bumped into the nice female instructor. She knows the poor guy's been training hard lately. He told her he does his best at everything. He couldn't reveal. It was actually punishment for getting questions wrong. At the Pain Resistance Center, he's accompanied by instructor Candlehead. Gustavo went there to learn too. The instructor is impressed the boy is still alive. In other training areas, Gustavo does very well. His sensory control is perfect. Even fighting holograms isn't difficult. Once again, he returned to the gravity machine. Gustavo said he felt a bit stiff. Machine operator realized the boy was taking this very seriously. When he returned to his room, Gustavo saw something interesting. There was a folder on his desk, and the panda was looking at him with great satisfaction. Gustavo has to go back to studying and memorizing more information. When he got home, our boy was visibly tired. His mom had already prepared dinner, but his dad wasn't home. He was away on a work trip. It's been a month since Gustavo last saw him, and our boy had a lot of questions about his job, but he couldn't discuss anything confidential. It was company policy. He was frequently subjected to lie detector tests, so our boy decided to talk to his mom about work situations instead. He said he's been given very difficult tasks. The matriarch wanted to know if he was being exploited. Gustavo said it wasn't like that, but everything was labor-intensive and full of responsibility. The matriarch told him they only do that with trustworthy people, but if he found it too hard, he should change jobs. Poor Gustavo immediately regretted venting to her. The matriarch asked if he was there for the money. Our boy said there were other cool things too. It was the path that would bring him closest to his personal dreams. That's why he won't give up just yet. The next day, he was back to being tested and continued his heavy training routine. 2 weeks passed. Our boy had already managed to memorize everything necessary, to the point where he had nothing left to do there. So he went back to reading those manuals. This company has 4 basic divisions. External security is responsible for dispatches. They handle emergency actions, like in the case of a black hole. They also respond to terrorist acts. Though security team 2 usually handles that. They also act in a support role when other teams need it. Most teams consists of pure people, but that specific team has 1 human woman and 2 hybrids sitting in his office chair. Gustavo wondered if life would always have this rhythm, while deciding what was best to train next. Walking down the hallway, our boy heard a familiar voice. It was his boss and the blonde girl. Lee immediately recognized the intern. In fact, he affectionately refers to our protagonist as Fucker, asking several questions he wanted to know if our protagonist was an asshole in school. After hearing what the other recruits had to say about him, Lee has some doubts. But Gustavo guaranteed he wasn't an asshole in school. Lee asked why not. Our boy said he did the opposite. He controlled the assholes, so they wouldn't bother anyone else. As their conversation progressed, other extras on the floor began to pay attention. The 2 seemed to be looking deeply at each other. Lee realized the protagonist used to be the school boss, controlling everyone. He also wanted to know if he had ever been in a fight, because it was time for them to practice a little. Everyone in the area, without exception, was surprised by this invitation. Since our dear protagonist was already a bit stressed, he didn't think twice. He accepted that lovely invitation. Lee wanted to confirm if the protagonist had really agreed to it, flashing a very malicious smile. Looking at the workers on that floor, he said none of them were busy, and they were going to need an audience. The blonde girl thinks the protagonist is a huge fool. Lee said he'll meet our boy in the ring after lunch, and recommended the boy stop eating now. He also asked the blonde girl to help the protagonist. He said it was a waste of time, but he mentioned he's one of the people evaluating her after her probation period. So the blonde girl agreed to help. Our protagonist couldn't believe what was happening, getting help from this girl. Lee told him he couldn't back out now. Gustavo assured him that wasn't an option. It was 5 minutes to 3 in the afternoon. The blonde girl wanted to know why our protagonist agreed to this, and why he irritates that man. Gustavo said he's just doing his job. He does what he's told. The blonde girl asked if he really wanted to go through with the fight. Gustavo is certain his boss would love to give him a beating. To the blonde girl, our protagonist is just stressed out. The truth is, Gustavo wants to use this opportunity to test himself. That man is known as the strongest in the company, gathered in the ring. Lee asked if the boy wasn't going to warm up. Gustavo said he already had. Outside the ring, Kim asked the newbie, try not to get killed, while the blonde girl told the protagonist to try hard to stay alive. Now that the match had started, Lee told the protagonist to attack first. So our boy began to focus, advancing rapidly toward his opponent. Gustavo decided he would take it easy. At first, his first punches couldn't reach the man, who dodged with ease. Lee said that like that. He'd never be hit. This only made Gustavo more focused. He was sure he only needed to land one single shot. He decided to leave one side unprotected. To lure in his victim, Lee started moving immediately. He fell for Gustavo's bait, who was already ready to counterattack. There was a massive impact, and bones were broken. Gustavo had just been hit. His arm completely twisted. He didn't understand how he got hit. His head was spinning. It had been a long time since he felt like this, with everything spinning, not knowing where the floor was. The first time this happened was when he trained with his mom. She has very heavy hands. She told the boy to pull himself together fast, because things were just getting started. Our poor guy was only 15 at the time, and he got beaten because he talked back to her. This is the first time he's receiving a beating from someone other than his mother. Lee asked if the newbie was behaving better now. The party was over. Gustavo didn't understand why he was the only one hurt. They had both exchanged blows, except our fighter's arm had been grabbed and broken. Immediately after that, gave an opportunity for a brutal elbow strike. To connect, it was a clean, extremely fast blow, even if he regenerated his arm now. Gustavo didn't know if he could hit that guy. Lee asked if he had bruised the kid's ego. It seemed rookies were very proud these days. Gustavo sighed deeply. This was a fight between an immortal and a shifter. He thought victory would come easily, but he had been very arrogant to think so. Our boy readied himself for battle once more. His head was in the right place now, and he kept up the attack. Lee seemed enthusiastic about the kid's motivation. It was time to deliver a little violence. The audience watched with close attention. Our boy unleashed an unstoppable barrage of strikes. Some guys realized he was good, but Lee was going easy on the rookie. Dodging those blows required almost no effort from him. Gustavo realized this was a mental battle. He needed to stay calm and focused. Lee asked why the kid was even in this company. Was it for the money? Gustavo ignored the words. He had to maintain his focus. Lee said the boy was pitiful. Then he mysteriously vanished right in front of him. Gustavo realized his opponent was masking his energy. He needed to sharpen his focus immediately, or something dangerous was about to happen. Thanks to that, our boy dodged a devastating blow. This left Lee very impressed afterwards. Gustavo needed to gain some distance. At that speed, he couldn't get close. He didn't understand how Lee could be faster than him. As a transformer, he should be stronger. That's when our boy realized rules have exceptions. Our protagonist had only learned the basics. Standing before him was an immortal, with years of training. Literally possessed excellent technique. But our protagonist was proud too. He wanted to give everything he had to win. Lee still wanted to know why the boy was there. Did he want to become a hero? After grabbing Gustavo's arm, he asked if he wanted to pick up women. If that was his goal, he should become a celebrity. This was really irritating Gustavo. He just wanted to shut Lee up with his fists. The boy's goal was to do what he loved most in life and become who he always dreamed of being. Lee disappeared again, moving even faster. Something just cut our boy's face. He needed distance immediately, but instead of fleeing, he managed to grab Lee's body with both hands. It was Gustavo's turn to ask questions. He asked why this complainer was even at the company. Lee said he was the one who asked questions here, but our boy hugged harder, breaking some of the poor guy's ribs. This only made Lee more irritated. That was Gustavo's advantage. He really was stronger. He decided he would crush this old man immediately. Before he could apply more pressure, something mysterious happened, drawing everyone's attention. Then Gustavo fell to the ground, all while Lee watched intently. One extra was surprised. Lee had to use that technique on a rookie. He said if it were him instead of the protagonist, he would have turned into ground meat. Another guy realized this year's rookies were full of potential. That fight is a Team 3 tradition. They always indoctrinate rookies to crush their egos. Lee ended up breaking one arm and some ribs. He said to take the protagonist to the infirmary, as he'd be out cold for a few more hours. Blonde girl said she'd do it, but she only volunteered because of the probationary evaluation. Kim, being very curious, wanted to know the team leader's verdict. Lee knew our boy had dodged the sneak attack when he hit his energy. He also showed he had a lot of willpower, more than anyone Lee had seen before. That was really very interesting. The ability Lee was going to use on him was sensory confusion lost in thought. Lee didn't hear Kim ask the question again. All the extras were also waiting for his words. Lee said the kid was a huge jerk. He had used the chance to try and hit a superior. It was time to take him to the infirmary, and everyone else needed to get back to work. Others in the protagonist's place hadn't been able to touch a hair on Lee's head. The team leader had to use very refined techniques to win. The team leader, who is a huge weirdo, now believes the protagonist is actually an incredible guy. In another room, our protagonist's friends were working hard, and they were very tired. Johan couldn't even stay awake. The protagonist entered the room as well. Surprising the redhead boy, our boy sat down in total silence. No one seemed to know why he was acting like that, but Gustavo was visibly disappointed. Before going there, he had gone to talk to Lee to demand explanations. Gustavo wanted to know how he had lost his senses, and how his boss had done that. Lee liked the boy's interest in learning the move, but our guy said he was just asking a question. Lee told him he really liked winning. Gustavo decided to turn his back on him and go his own way, since that jerk wasn't going to tell him anything. Lee said this wasn't school. He wouldn't get all the answers he wanted just because he asked a question. He said the boy should find a way to figure it out and write a report. It needed details on why he had lost, and he had to do it himself. If he looked for answers from someone else, he'd better give up now. And if he thought none of it made sense, he should give up then too. But Gustavo needed to do it soon and decide what he wanted to do with his life. One of the rookies was presenting what the analysis team did, but our boy was only thinking about his defeat, how that man was so much stronger than him. He couldn't understand how he had been hit. It almost seemed like Lee had a hidden weapon. The conversation they'd had was even more intimidating. Stavo needed to learn to fend for himself. Soon back at the lecture, the presenter was talking about Project Oracle. It was a system capable of predicting the future. That was how the analysis team was born. The blonde girl had a question. She heard psychics used to exist, and the speaker confirmed it was true. The future is a dynamic force, always in motion. The blonde girl said that. Predicting such a malleable future only brought false hope, and indeed, that is why Project Oracle existed. But it failed its purpose. The speaker said the reason was very simple. The human brain was to blame. A person's thoughts are never completely true. Half-truths exist for everyone, and they end up deceiving people. Believing something is true isn't necessarily proof of that truth. This leads people into error. Our protagonists seem to have an epiphany, remembering the farmer's words. Masking one's own energy is also about confusing others. Perception of mortals are very sensitive and can block certain signals before they reach other people. Gustavo seemed to understand this. Using this principle, he couldn't just block sensations. He could also pass on false information. He remembered he was squeezing his opponent. He thought he had grabbed both his arms. But that was wrong. That presentation finally ended. But before the conclusion, our boy had already left the room. Remembering details of the fight, he realized everything was in his boss's right hand. It was time to write the report. The problem was for the deception to have worked. Lee needed to know exactly when he would be attacked. The team leader was waiting to end all. In a single blow, Gustavo realized intuition could work similarly to clairvoyance, something only the best possess. After surviving many battles, Gustavo still couldn't read others' movements to that depth, but he could combine his intuition with his senses. Our boy's heart started beating fast. He had just stumbled upon a great source of knowledge. He could achieve this ability too. In the blink of an eye, he ran toward the team leader. Lee had no idea what was happening. He had to push himself away from the desk with a kick, but our protagonist remained completely still. He hadn't moved an inch. He had perfectly controlled his own senses, focusing only on his opponent. Our boy felt his boss's next movement and tried to attack him in that position, but things didn't happen the way he was expecting. Lee seemed to find that sudden attack interesting. Once again, he used that mysterious technique against our boy. Gustavo felt energy coming from all sides. He was surprised by a blow to the jaw. The boy had to take a few steps back. The panda and the redhead woman were trying to understand how that was possible. Meanwhile, the team leader wanted to know what that was. Gustavo said this was his report, and he was trying to understand. The answer to that question, that single blow was enough to break the boy's jaw. To reach the conclusion of that question, Gustavo realized this would be the ideal way. Another bystander mentioned that our protagonist went crazy. Maybe he needs therapy. He seems mentally unstable. Surprisingly, Lee said the little punk isn't wrong. This left our main character confused again. The team chief told our boy to clean up that mess fast. He asked if the others were too busy. The panda and the redhead are chill though. The lead said they're off duty and can go home, while Lovato stays to fix everything. Since he has a good memory, he'll know exactly what's out of place. Later outside, the panda asked what the rookie did. Kim realized the rookie used a sensory deception move. They want to know if Lee taught the boy without telling them. The team leader said he'd never do that. Besides, instead of handing in the report, Gustavo chose to attack the boss. Lee seemed to enjoy that part. Regarding physical skills, Kim is sure the boy is high level, but the chief wonders if he was trained. A pure blood would never act like that. Still, the boy followed the order, literally using the technique right against the leader. Despite learning something interesting, our poor boy has to clean it all up the next day. Kim was surprised when the team leader said he wanted to put the rookie on a mission. Since she needs assistance and they are short-staffed, she should take him. Kim called for our boy, who jumped up with enthusiasm. They are already in the elevator, heading to a floor full of weapons. To prep for the mission, both start putting on full gear. Gustavo looks like an elite soldier, someone heading out to play paintball with friends. Sirens are blaring where they are. A black gate just appeared in the middle of the field. Our protagonist just arrived at the designated mission spot. They're expecting an invader. and more might appear this part of the story. Teaches us the typical lingo of these operations. You have to learn to read it. Our boy looks at the portal with anxiety, remembering what happened 9 years ago. That's when he was saved by a mysterious figure, and promised himself he'd hunt those monsters too. Today is the first day of the rest of his life, where he'll achieve this dream. But that gate is much smaller than expected. Gustavo told his boss he's getting nervous. She ignores him completely. Checking her weapons, our boy decided to do the same. Until something mysterious happened. That gate started getting much bigger. This is an irregularity. Kim asked for immediate backup, but Central needs video. When the image arrives at the office, the chief and the panda got scared. The two need to retreat immediately. It became too dangerous. Gustavo knows the situation can get very dangerous. Creatures will advance immediately. He asked if their work was finished. Faced with her silence, Gustavo remembered seeing the region via satellite. There's a nearby city. These people are at risk. Central ordered them to leave, but Gustavo wants to know until backup arrives. Kim said approximately 15 minutes. Again, Central told them to obey orders until the first creature stepped out of the gate. Gustavo is confused. He doesn't want to flee now. If they stay too long, they'll become targets of these monsters. Last year, technology minimized traffic deaths, but invaders still kill almost 10,000 people annually. Immortals are valuable workers, so they must be cautious, but the protagonist realized his partner isn't interested in fleeing. Over comms, Lee asked what those fools are doing. Just standing there finally. The creature broke free from the portal, completely furious, but it got hit by something. Kim fired her weapon at the monster. Gustavo knows normal people are in danger, and he wants to change that. Ready to fight, Gustavo told his partner he might be in love with her. More shots are fired. Lee started getting very worried. To disguise the disobedience, they claimed communication is terrible. Gustavo is still shooting, and his partner needed to reload. Other monsters are appearing from a portal. So far, the two are managing containment masterfully. They only expected 10 creatures that day. They brought few weapons, but since the gate's pattern changed, the number could reach the hundreds. Gustavo needs to figure out what to do now, because it will get dangerous soon. Shots keep being fired at the creatures. Kim is also focused on the task. They are the only ones who can stop something worse from happening. The ammo is running low, and the attack pattern is in waves. Gustavo asked if she has a plan, and she said yes while the creatures focus on the boy. She will finish them all. The situation can't hold like this. Bullets will run out soon. And finally, it happened to our protagonist. One creature is ready to finish him, but our boy was saved by his partner. Even with no ammo, she can solve everything through traditional violence. Gustavo was very impressed. Now, they need to finish the other creatures. Kim's movement is impressive, leaving our protagonist awestruck. Without knowing how super drugs work, Gustavo is sure of one thing. Kim is much stronger than a normal person. He continues giving her support until the ammo finally ran out completely. Time for Gustavo to embrace tradition. He won't just be bait, it's time to show his powers. Gustavo started by smashing the first head. Then he grabbed a creature's arm and used its body as a club to hit the others. So far, they are resisting the attack, but those dogs are really dangerous. Kim needs to use her knives to finish them off, leaving behind a trail of bodies. She must maintain attention at all costs. Gustavo realized the girl is always changing position to avoid being attacked. Since our boy is still very distracted, he got bitten on the arm, but grabbing his own knife. Gustavo solved that problem quickly, ending the life of the creature that tried to devour him. Our boy realized he can't lose focus. He needs to stay very concentrated, remembering his partner's plan. He can attract the creatures while she finishes them. There aren't many options. Gustavo is trying to perfect his senses, using all the techniques he learned. He gained good perception of what is happening. Kim realized something different happened. Our protagonist managed to attract all the monsters, which is positive. Our boy started being bitten by the creatures, who now only see him. Gustavo is going through serious problems. Kim realizes it. She might not be capable of finishing everything alone, but the protagonist won't end the story now. He's capable of surviving. He needs to ignore pain and keep a clear mind. Gustavo defended only against lethal attacks, to strike back as taught by the farmer. He uses his whole body to defend and attack. A single invader can cause countless deaths. That's why our boy is so determined. A much larger firearm started singing in that place. wiping out several monsters immediately. Backup finally arrived, saying those two are completely crazy. Kim is very out of breath and worried about our protagonist. He just asked if he let any invader escape. Looking at the boy's injured body, she said no. He resisted very well hearing those words. Gustavo started falling to the ground. The reinforcement team wants to know if they finished the job apparently. There's nothing left to do. Observing it all left the supervisor scared. There are at least 200 dead creatures. It's impressive that 2 people took care of everything. For 10 well-trained immortals, it would have been difficult, but they only needed a drugged human and a hybrid. But she knows our protagonist was the real reason that mission succeeded. That lame excuse about not being able to hear anything didn't fly with him. Gustavo stuck to his guns. The connection was bad. This only made the team leader angrier. They hadn't followed his orders. He said he was about to lose his own sanity connection. He just wanted to beat the hell out of both of them. Kim stepped up to take responsibility for what happened. The team leader asked her if she realized her position there. She simply replied that she was just an employee. But since they had messed up and disobeyed orders, Lee demanded to know if she intended to resign. Thanks to their actions, there would be a disciplinary hearing. For now, they were dismissed. Before he left, Lee called out to the protagonist. He asked him if he was proud of what he'd done. Gustavo said no. The team leader told him not to lie to him right now. From that day on, Gustavo had to write a daily letter of apology. Our boy asked if he wouldn't have to face the disciplinary hearing. As well, the team boss asked if he actually wanted that, because eventually it was going to happen anyway. For now, just the apology letters would suffice. Nothing more. How they had taken down multiple invaders, all by themselves. Johan explained that new hires on probation don't usually face standard disciplinary consequences. They just get fired. So the consequences of their actions fell entirely on Kim. It was truly unfortunate. Facing these kinds of consequences for disobeying orders is incredibly messy. Gustavo knew there was a village nearby. They had to make tough calls to save lives. When the team leader asked if he was proud, our boy had to lie because deep down, he was certain he had made the right choice. The problem was he was getting tired of this crap. Leaving the building that day, his teammate caught up to him. She told him he had done really good work back there. Kim said it with complete sincerity. That boosted Gustavo's confidence significantly. He knew he had done the right thing. When he got home, his mom asked if he had a picture. He asked of who she wanted to see. These co-workers he talked so much about. Gustavo told her. The woman didn't have a profile picture on anything. Only then did the matriarch reveal her true intent. She was interested in a potential daughter-in-law. Gustavo insisted they were just co-workers. His mother assured him that's exactly how these things start and evolve later. Even so, he was worried about the disciplinary hearing. Several people were already gathered in a specific hall for the event. They were there to evaluate the red-haired woman's conduct. The hearing began. They all knew she had disobeyed direct orders to abandon that location. Kim confirmed that was exactly what happened. Trying to defend her, Lee argued that things get complicated in the heat of battle. The old man with glasses told him to be quiet, but the team leader wouldn't retract his statement. The meeting ended up being interrupted. Our protagonist had gone there as well. One of the officials conducting the meeting asked if our boy had been forced to proceed. He said no then. They asked if he knew what happened to rookies who caused problem. Gustavo stated it was the best choice to make at the time. The old man with glasses demanded to know what made this young man think that way. Lee, contradicting the elder, said the rookie just had good common sense. That's all thanks to their actions. They managed to save the lives of innocent people. The others fell into complete silence. Lee said that's what it's all about. Saving lives is the most important part of their job. Since he was interrupting so much, they asked him to leave. The team leader wasn't about to abandon his teammates. Someone told him to shut up. The team leader retorted, asking if that person had the ability to make him. Our protagonist realized this company was an absolute zoo. Anyway, Lee argued that these things happen. It wasn't even that serious. The situation was getting increasingly tense. The protagonist realized it would be best to leave that room. Lee told them they needed to be flexible. This whole thing was scaring the rookies. After leaving the room, the extra accompanying the protagonist couldn't tell if that went well or poorly. It was good to see the team leader looking out for his members. But he shouldn't push his luck. He could ruin his own evaluation if he kept this up. Gustavo hadn't realized Lee was compromising himself by doing that, especially Lee of all people, who was usually such a jerk. After walking for a bit, the two said their goodbyes. But before the elevator closed, the extra held the door. It was the panda who had just arrived. Bursting with curiosity, he asked the rookie how the hearing went. Gustavo said the team leader was trying really hard. He was doing it again. The panda wanted to know if anything else had happened, but that just made the protagonist thoughtful. He remembered the conversation he'd had with the other extra, the one who invited him to join the audit team. Now our protagonist had many choices to make. He told the panda that nothing else had happened. Shortly after, the rest of the team returned to the office. Lee was furious. Panda asked what happened. Kim said she was suspended from missions for the next 30 days. That was a very severe punishment for them. Lee didn't like the decision at all. It made absolutely no sense. It didn't seem that severe to Gustavo, given everyone else's reaction. It must have been terrible. He didn't know how to gather information, since everyone was staying silent. Now, they all went back to office work. Our boy wrote his apology letter and handed it to the team leader. After reading it, Lee asked if the kid was crazy. Gustavo said he had never done anything like this before. At least Gustavo was being accepted. Kim was training the boy to fight even better. They told him to use his immortal senses more. He even got tips on how to fight the team leader. Another apology letter was written, but the content was getting bolder every time. Gustavo still tried to surprise the team leader. He used the opportunity to learn a little more. He used his intuition to predict movements. He already knew his boss didn't have habits when fighting, making him difficult to read. Gustavo had to rely solely on his instincts, but he ended up being fooled once again. Lee managed to strike our boy with ease. Panda was timing the battle. It reached 6 minutes, a new record. Feeling his sore back, Gustavo concluded that the team leader was very good. One day their routine changed completely. Our boy was still writing his apologies. The team leader called for him. He wanted to know what that blonde asshole had said to our boy in the elevator. A few days prior, that extra had invited our boy to join his team. Instead, he had pretended it was just a joke. As he said goodbye to Gustavo, very surprised, Gustavo asked how the team leader found out. He told him the truth. Lee realized someone was trying to poach his rookie. Gustavo was scared by his boss's attitude and started getting very worried. Speaking of the blonde extra, he just arrived at the office. Lee moved like lightning toward him, violently kicking the poor guy. The senior employees expected something like this to happen, but our protagonist remained incredulous. Lying on the floor, the extra asked why that happened. Lee said it was because he tried to recruit his rookie, tried to defend himself. The extra said it was just a joke, before the situation got even worse. The man with glasses entered the office. Our protagonist seemed to know this citizen. He was the leader of the external audit team. He asked Lee what he thought he was doing. The crazy boss said he was just having a little fun. He only broke one of the poor guy's arms. No big deal. But the guy with glasses didn't like that at all. He stated that Lee was the one overreacting to a simple joke. That's when the crazy boss realized everyone knew about the proposal. He didn't like knowing his rookie was being recruited for another division. But the man with glasses said the leader was a crazy man. Now that he was in the office, the man with glasses wanted the protagonist's opinion, seeing as that team was a living hell. Lee said the man with glasses didn't have the authority for that, because that rookie belonged to him, shouting across the whole floor. He made sure the other teams heard him. He warned them that if anyone tried to poach the kid, they'd find out why he's called the blender. Gustavo realized right then his boss is genuinely nuts. The man with glasses claimed they value freedom in that place. So he asked for our protagonist's opinion, seeing as he'd be validated either way. Now, everyone was staring at the kid with intense interest. Gustavo wasn't ready for a moment like this. Even if his answer was his leader is insane. Panda is a total weirdo, and the only woman on the team is ice cold. Yet somehow he still chose to stay. Right there that left the guy with glasses speechless. According to Johan, that guy had always been a phenomenon. He pushed a little harder, offering to help our protagonist if the out-of-control leader was the issue. But our boy knows what he's doing. He'd rather learn from that lunatic. Hearing that, Lee sees the moment to be even more annoying, sticking his tongue out at the glasses guy. The audit leader asked if the protagonist truly believed he could learn more from that jackass. Our boy said, yes, apparently he's dead set on staying. Since they'd been rejected, they cleared out of the office. Now alone, Lee asked why Gustavo was staring at him. It was obvious he was going to stay anyway. Once again, they were ordered back to work. Panda mentioned the boss is actually proud of our boy. Walking past our protagonist's desk, Lee noticed something. He asked the kid what it was. Gustavo said it was his apology letter. He just hadn't finished it yet. Given the look that lunatic gave him, Gustavo started worrying. That letter is basically a joke, a piece of sarcastic poetry. After a brief punching session, Anda commented to the female team member that the crazy person count had just gone up to 2. While those two were trading punches, another mission arrived for them. Lee wanted to know what the task entailed. The question remained, who would be in charge of executing it? For the team leader, the answer was obvious. He only has one rookie to send this time. Gustavo liked that news and wanted to know where he was headed. Lee told the kid he's going to the airport. He's going to be a human detector. Gustavo needs to find a girl. She's a shape-shifting supernatural, and the image shows her original form. She's probably a mercenary carrying vital documents. That's why they requested their help. There will be some Transformers on this mission. Gustavo knows she can change her shape, but she can't change her scent. He asked if there would be support from other teams. Panda said the blonde girl is going too, and very likely the silent princess. The team chief couldn't believe he had to send that mediocre rookie, along with those prodigies. But since at least 3 immortals are required, the boy has to go due to staffing shortages. It'll be 3 first years. Our boy is going as security for the other 2, just to keep himself out of too much trouble. Lee told Gustavo to do his job right and make sure nothing happens to the silent princess. Kong from the analysis team came over to brief them on the mission. He was going to explain all the mission details to the rookies, but the speaker got distracted by something, a bruise on the protagonist's face. Gustavo just said he'd had a little chat with his leader, and Kong remembered the poor guy is on Team 3. That explained a lot. Their mission would take place at the airport. They'd all be disguised as regular people, and the operation would start in the morning. They will meet another team there, the ones actually in charge of the mission. The leader of that other team assumes everyone is already up to speed on what's happening. Gustavo and the blonde girl will stay inside the airport, monitoring absolutely everything. Meanwhile, the silent princess will search elsewhere, near where tickets are purchased. Everyone's communication was running smoothly until 2 people started approaching the protagonist. They were there to provide security for them. Gustavo recognized this sensation. He could feel that those were Transformers. Apologizing for the delay, they informed the group they were there for security. Before everything went down, Gustavo asked Kong a question. He didn't know why the silent princess would be left alone. The poor guy didn't like being called by his actual name by our protagonist, and he made that very clear. Kong said a highly sensitive immortal was requested for this mission. That's why the silent princess is going too. The blonde girl noted that there were too many people involved. The silent princess claimed to be the only true immortal there. Either way, they need to complete the mission, and Guard will be there to assist. When the briefing ended, the silent princess stood up to leave. She was followed by the blonde girl, who also had nothing to say. Only our protagonist remained in the room. He apologized to Kong for the behavior of the other 2. They're complicated, Kong said. Results speak loudest around here. Gustavo realized he'd have to work with those 2 jerks. On mission day, some random extra approached the blonde girl, asking for her number, because he thought she was beautiful. She told him she was married. Our protagonist saw this happening immediately. He asked who that asshole was bothering her. After the extra walked away, the blonde girl said he had exaggerated a little. Gustavo knew he had to get back to paying attention to everything, but all those people seemed perfectly normal. Then someone called them over to check a small piece of information. A person in a blue shirt and jeans. A man around 30 years old. They needed to start looking for those characteristics. Walking calmly through the crowd, the target tried to remain disguised. He was carrying a large backpack. Gustavo couldn't detect anything suspicious about the man. The blonde girl realized. Our protagonist didn't understand why the silent princess received privileged treatment. She is different from everyone else. A real pure blood being extremely sensitive. She can perceive differences in any signal. Now the team is moving into position to approach the target. Gustavo began recalling some of his father's teachings. To be a strong immortal, you need sharp senses. and people like that usually have awful personalities. The old man was relieved to know his son wasn't a jerk, but also a bit disappointed to learn he wasn't that sensitive. But our boy is special too, and he learns easily. He proved that while learning from the team leader, so he decided to take the lead in the action, speaking directly to the target. All this happened while police started securing the perimeter, keeping people away. Nobody knew what was going on. Maybe it was a movie shoot. Gustavo started using all his perception to understand the environment. Someone asked if there was really only a single target, putting everyone on high alert. A weird commotion started. One of the police officers already had his weapon drawn. While the officer was ready to fire, the silent princess tried to regroup with her teammates. Several shots were fired toward the crowd. The situation was getting more confused by the minute. The policeman who had opened fire was just neutralized. After hearing all that noise, Gustavo started worrying and headed toward the trouble. That's when he felt something approaching them, specifically targeting the blonde girl. The poor girl almost lost her head, but she managed to dodge and strike the bald guy, leaving the extra defeated on the ground. They realized the attackers here were psychic power users. Gustavo could feel the presence of two others, but didn't know how many targets total were in the operation. They were spreading out fast. Gustavo knew he had to stop them. 2 days before the mission, their files were being reviewed. Kong was impressed with the silent princess. She's a very capable person from a traditional family, just like the blonde girl. He was also interested in our protagonist record. Everyone was talking about when he fought the team. Chief, besides being very skilled, he seemed to have a pleasant personality. All the characteristics they were looking for. The Candlehead instructor had passed through and noted that he looks a lot like our protagonist. Having also heard the shots, Kong got very worried about the rookies, since he didn't know what was happening. He had to abandon his position to assist the team. He needed to know what was going on. As soon as he entered the airport, one of the police officers caught Kang's attention. That man's presence triggered all his senses, and he wondered if he should follow him. Kong remembered our protagonist is pretty good at solving problems with his fists, so he issued an order. Our boy needs to chase down that target, and he's cleared to use violence. Kong also tried reaching the other two, but the silent princess ended up taking a bullet. The protagonist, however, is ready to push on with his mission. An all-out brawl is raging non-stop at the airport. Psychic powers are flying around everywhere. Having recovered a bit, the silent princess is able to act. One of the officers had already been taken down. The blonde girl reported multiple hostiles in the area. She identified 7 targets total, but the primary one remains the shape-shifting woman. The silent princess said she can still fight. That hole in her chest was nothing. Kong told that poor soul not to try anything cute. They were too valuable to lose like that. He had to be very firm with those rookies. One of the thugs was ready to shoot them all, but he got absolutely destroyed by Kong, who fought like an animal. Acting fast, Kong neutralized another clown. It's time to finish off all these thugs. Downstairs, the guy who was dressed as a cop has already changed clothes. Our protagonist caught up to this fine citizen and asked if he was done running. The target remarked on our boy's persistence, figuring he must be an immortal. The protagonist asked if that wasn't obvious already. After considering it a moment, the target said, no feeling, no sense of danger. The target asked why the protagonist came alone. Gustavo said backup was on the way. The target replied that coming here all by himself was a mistake on the boy's part. That's when the target's body began a drastic change. His psychic powers specialized in physical strength, and he just turned into a mini Hulk. Since immortals can't die, this thug said, he's just gonna crack our boy's skull open. Gustavo realized backup would be delayed. About 10 minutes out for our boy. That's more than enough time. He doesn't have much to worry about. The wounded are already being treated. Kong realized the operation's target wasn't there. The shape-shifting woman had vanished. So the blonde girl was right. It was all just a distraction, so the real target could escape. Downstairs, the protagonist faces a brutal battle that nobody actually believes. He can dish out violence against him. He prepared to land the first blow. It was already aiming for the protagonist's head. Gustavo defended against it with ease, but the extra wasn't surprised. Not until he tried to pull his arm out of that grip and realized something was very wrong. Gustavo asked if the guy had eaten lunch, because he seemed to have lost all his strength. Using a bit of his power, our protagonist snapped that clown's arm. With just one hand, the pain was so intense. The thug almost collapsed, and the massage session hadn't even really started yet. Sensing he was about to be brutally crushed, the bald bandit tried to react. He hoped to land a kick to our boy's head, remembering his training. Gustavo knew how easy it was to redirect force. It was effortless to defend against a blow, coming from someone with zero technique. This gave Gustavo the opportunity to get a little more violent. Time to rearrange the teeth in that poor thug's mouth. He tossed the poor wretch into the air. Like a party balloon, the bandit hit the ground, visibly mangled. Gustavo told him he lacked hatred. The battle hadn't even lasted 3 minutes. Gustavo still had to wait for backup to arrive. Being a curious man, he started eyeing that mysterious backpack. It seems shapeshifters can even turn into objects, but she can't turn into solid metal. And our boy is ready to set that backpack on fire. At first, nothing happens, until a mouth appeared on the object, saying she surrendered. Gustavo didn't appreciate the delay. He said he had questions. The backpack begged him to move the lighter away. Furthermore, she couldn't guarantee she had all the answers, as that could compromise her entire career. However, she admitted she was willing to negotiate. Gustavo said he wasn't interested in that. He asked if she could turn into something smaller, like a cigarette, so he could light it with his lighter. The woman replied she was already at her limit. Seeing she was still a backpack, Gustavo asked what she was waiting for, to turn back into a person. The backpack said she needed to borrow his jacket. Backup finally arrived on the floor, and nobody could tell what was happening. Gustavo had given his jacket to the woman and defeated the bald bandit. Khan demanded to know what happened, so our boy reported the situation. He was attacked by the bald bandit and had to give him a severe beating. The backpack the bald guy was wearing was actually the shape-shifting woman. Shortly after, the silent princess arrived as well, but our protagonist told her the show was already over. The bald bandit was immediately arrested, just to provoke the silent princess. Our protagonist whispered in her ear that he was the one responsible for catching the target. The woman from the other agency, the police chief, asked if Gustavo took down the bald guy alone. Our boy said he just got lucky. He hadn't lost his composure just because he found the target. Unlike certain people, those transformers liked our boy's attitude, until someone asked if he had any idea who he just knocked out. Facing our protagonist's ignorance, even the shapeshifter woman was surprised. That bandit is wanted in several places and goes by the nickname Rhinoceros. He has a huge bounty on his head. Gustavo soon learned that Citizen is connected to very dangerous organizations. What he did there was sensational. People assumed the battle was incredibly violent, and since our boy is immortal, they figured he'd already regenerated. Only Gustavo knew it only took a single blow. Kong was very pleased with the outcome of the action and congratulated our boy. Now it's time to crunch some numbers. Everything that happened wasn't in the contract. One of their team members stopped the fight without using any gear, which made that woman a little upset. Still, she agreed, but she had a question to ask as well. She wanted to know the level of that promising rookie. Gustavo introduced himself to her, saying he was just a new recruit. Back at the office, Lee said, "Our boy doesn't need to reveal his name in every operation, unless he wants to get famous." Gustavo admitted that's a hard habit to break. Returning to the investigation, they discovered that the bald bandit is a member of a very dangerous organization. The ones behind everything were this organization, called Prometheus. The girl was carrying confidential information for their organization, extremely sensitive data. Before leaving the team chief's presence, Lee asked if our protagonist was happy about capturing a terrorist. Our boy said yes, returning to his own desk. He was ordered to write a report, and this time to do it right. This organization is made up of mad scientists who want to make all humans special, just like the god who shared fire with mankind. Thinking about it, Gustavo realized the world is full of crazy people. If crazy could fly, you'd never see the sky. Just then a man with glasses approached the protagonist and asked him to come along. Gustavo was taken to another room, where a man was already waiting for him. It was Mufasa who wanted to see him, and he asked our boy to sit down. Since he introduced himself very formally, Mufasa asked if the boy did that for the police. In the Transformers, the boy said he had made a mistake. It was all right with Mufasa. People make mistakes every now and then. But he knew what happened with the terrorist and asked if our boy desired anything. Gustavo said he'd like a promotion, and Mufasa admired the ambition. However, what he had done wasn't big enough to secure something like that. It was only impressive because a rookie had done it. Knowing this, Gustavo asked why he was called into the room. Mufasa said he wanted to praise him personally, and again asked if the boy wanted anything. Our protagonist fell silent for a moment, then said money is always welcome. He gave part of the reward to his mother, who was quite happy about it. After that airport operation, Gustavo was sent on several field missions. Now he understands why the team chief is crazy. In just 3 months, Gustavo captured 5 supernatural bandits, besides helping close 10 portals that appeared in the city. He also learned that the team leader hates doing those kinds of missions. He also hates the boys' reports. But that's the protagonist's fault. He describes unnecessary things, like how many times the team leader picks his nose. During this time, he also kept training hard. He doesn't get knocked out by a few hits from the team leader anymore. Actually, Lee doesn't spend more than 10 minutes on this kind of training with the boy. Stavo always has a lesson to learn during that short time, but he still hasn't been able to spot a weakness in the team leader 3 months after that operation. Kim is full of hate. She said she's going to kill them all. She's sitting at a restaurant table in the company of her colleagues. She had been talking to herself. Whenever she drinks a little, she falls asleep and starts rambling, enjoying the relaxed moment. Panda asked his boss if he thought he could get a girlfriend. Lee said he isn't a psychic. Then looking at our protagonist, the crazy leader told him not to get too drunk. He wouldn't want to see the youngster making a mess. That restaurant is inside the company, specifically for immortals. It's a quiet but cozy environment. Everyone is taking the opportunity to drink plenty, and Gustavo started getting very curious. Lee told the kid not to look at him like that. But what our protagonist wanted to know was how much he had changed in the last few months. So he asked the leader if they could fight for real. It was a proposal that left his other colleagues quite impressed. Lee assumed our boy was completely drunk, but Gustavo said he was fine. The truth is the team leader loved that proposal. He's already heading to the training room. Our boy followed him there too. Lee asked if Gustavo wanted to be violently knocked out. Our boy said that wasn't necessary. Their training had been getting increasingly boring. It was time to bring real violence. Panda went to see what was happening and heard the blows through the door. Those two are unleashing all the cruelty. They learned in life Gustavo keeps getting pressured, but he managed to break his boss's arm. Even so, that's not enough. Lee was already ready to crush the poor guy's skull, but our protagonist managed to defend against that blow. He realized he would be surprised. Right after the arm he had broken just a second ago hit him, the impact on the protagonist's head was truly impressive. That combat seems to have ended. Panda asked if the rookie can also use that thing, since he noticed he had broken the chief's arm. Lee said there are different cases. Looking at the protagonist, who is unconscious on the floor, Lee realized he is very different. Someone is watching the files of that year's new recruits, and he noticed the protagonist right away, the person creating various rumors. So, he asked his secretary for a detailed file on our boy. His evaluation is very satisfactory. The guy realized that Gustavo knows how to get things done, but his ability as an immortal isn't that good. It's almost as if he has no talent. It's impressive that he is on the external security team, while possessing small abilities in that area. The secretary said that in the last field operation, our boy received maximum marks, but observing other attributes, that man realized the boy is mediocre in some areas. There was something special about him too. It's in our boy's file that he practically doesn't get drunk. So he came to the conclusion that he's just a weirdo who knows how to fight very well, but who can't control himself and who doesn't have the sense of an immortal. It will be necessary to remove him from that scenario. Looking at his own file, Gustavo asked how immortal abilities are evaluated. Panda said it's by observation, and he was also part of that disciplinary hearing. His score is low in that area because he did something punishable. Even so, Gustavo disagrees with that. He should receive a better grade. His attitude at work was also poorly evaluated, perhaps because he fights too much against the team leader. For 2 months, he has been yelling in that place, and it disturbs the other workers at the company. Gustavo also doesn't understand why. It says there that he's capable of drinking a lot. The one responsible for that evaluation, the crazy chief, praised our boy because of that power. Regarding the red mark next to his name, it's because someone is watching the boy. Gustavo was relieved. He thought it might be a risk of being fired. Panda confirmed that it is exactly that. If the boy doesn't show good results, in the next evaluation, he will be the first to be fired. That ended up leaving our protagonist very scared. Loudspeaker made an announcement for the new recruits to gather at the training field. That is part of their evaluation. Our protagonist friends are there too, and they already know that. Our boy was the first to draw negative attention. Gustavo didn't know the file could be seen by everyone, and he was disappointed about that. His friends told him not to lose hope. If he opened a popcorn stand in front of that building, they would be loyal customers. The time has come to begin the exam, so the new recruits must position themselves now. While our boy walks away, he asked if his friends had ever watched the movie The Sixth Sense because there's a big plot twist. That leaves everyone surprised. In a room full of cameras, everything in this building is being watched. Mufasa went there too. He said he is very curious about what is happening and would like to see it because it's going to be very fun. A battle between the best recruits of that company. Our protagonist is going to be one of the first to fight. His opponent is going to be the Silent Princess. Definitely. The two of them don't like each other very much. The combat started very intensely. Our protagonist remembered something that happened before he was being tested by someone. He needed to find out which cards were different by paying attention to small details. To finish that task, it took him a little over 3 seconds, which is an impressive time. Our boy now wants to beat up the Silent Princess. When they saw the video of him exercising in the gravity machine, they almost couldn't believe it. 12 times normal gravity is basically triple what a conventional recruit is capable of resisting. The poor Silent Princess is being beaten. She can't react to any of our protagonist's blows. She's being brutalized in this task. The protagonist's lung capacity is also very good. His physical strength is exceptional, just like the reflexes he possesses. That is reaction time. His flexibility is also something completely impressive. His score in this part is much higher than the average for immortals. And the Silent Princess is finding that out in the worst possible way. Our boy had to apologize to her, since he had been hiding his true power until now. After meeting that crazy leader, Gustavo realized that isn't necessary. So he won't hide his true potential anymore. He decided he's going to do the best in all areas of that place, completely smashing the Silent Princess's face. Only one evaluation remained for our protagonist. He is non-standard in NS. He broke the Silent Princess's teeth, and the blonde girl's too. Gustavo remembered he also did that to his friends, knocking out the red-haired boy. Lee asked if the boy happened to be a dentist. Gustavo said he's just a level 3 employee at that place. But since the answer was petulant, Lee almost tore out the boy's teeth. Heading home, that day, a car approached our protagonist. It's that weird guy who was looking at his file. For God's sake, another Korean name. I can't take it anymore. Let's call this guy Top Knot Face. He offered him a ride. Now, the issue inside the car. Top Knot Face said he has a project underway and has a position available. That's why he'd like the protagonist to accept that proposal. Gustavo doesn't even know what to say to him now. Top Knot Face told the boy to keep working. He only needs to start when the project starts too, showing interest in the boy. He asked if he likes to eat meat. It was a question that made no sense, but our boy ended up being let go. Top-Notch Face called someone and told his superior that he had made contact with the protagonist. He realized he is very intelligent and must know what that means. Arriving home, the protagonist's mother asked why he had received that meat. Gustavo said it's because he works very hard. After the probationary period, our boy became a level 3 employee and got access to more documents and a salary increase. His mother is still waiting to receive a grandchild, and our boy moved to be closer to work. But a crucial detail about his life is that his team barely has any work to do. Lee said he's heading out for a meeting. He remembered asking Kim why their crazy leader doesn't have performance reviews. She said it's because they don't do anything. Gustavo argued they'd done many operations recently. The girl replied that they just provide support. That's why they aren't evaluated. Through her, he found out the higher-ups don't like their leader. That's why they get so little work. The panda is the one who ends up working hard, doing lots of favors for other teams. Gustavo offered to help him, but Panda is already used to this pace. Our boy doesn't like sitting around doing nothing. Panda said they do work hard sometimes. The team leader always brings in something big. Every now and then in their group chat, they decided they'd all share a meal together. Panda led the way. They asked if it was his house. Panda said no. It's the external conference room. Its code name is Panda's House. The projector was turned on to show the briefing material. Lee asked for everyone's attention. They just discovered a new material in the white portal. An ambient stone. It's capable of storing aura, the same energy psychics use. It serves as an instrument to change that energy. The analysis team realized it could be a future power source. Not all stones can store the same amount of energy. Of the ones evaluated so far, the best are rated AA. A Category D stone can power a plane, traveling from Korea to the United States. A Category A stone is strong enough to take down an S-rank transformer. And apparently, a stone of that category has been discovered. At least 50 of them have already been found. The psychic organization secured them, but the information leaked. Possessing these stones is crucial, and they asked the government for help. It will be up to Hawaii Communications to protect their transfer. They will receive some stones as payment. That's why they are gathered there. Lee is going to present the main information to them, along with details about the entire operation. The team ended up being surprised by this information. Lee wanted to know if our protagonist could participate in this mission. He asked for Panda's opinion, who needed to think about it. But he's confident too, believing in the kid's capabilities. So everything is decided, until our boy decided to ask a question. He asked why they were gathered in that room. Crazy Boss said they're working. Those words brought a lot of excitement to our guy. The next ambient stone will be theirs. In a restricted area full of security, a man ended up penetrating those defenses, leaving the conventional soldiers very worried. Right behind a Crazy Boss is our protagonist. He is saying, this is an important mission for the immortal forces. The target keeps fleeing desperate, but our protagonist and his partner keep executing the mission until they lost sight of the target. Conventional soldiers realized what was happening and told them not to do it. But our protagonist is willing to enter that portal to fulfill the objective of his mission.